In the year 2045, a brutal war with terrible monsters is raging on Earth. The soldier watches in horror as he is pierced by an enemy blade. A giant monster towers over a battlefield strewn with the bodies of fallen soldiers. The young fighter realizes with horror that this is the end. The monster's deadly tentacle rushes towards the defenseless soldier on the ground. Suddenly, another fighter appears and cuts the tentacle, saving his comrade. He takes aim with determination and shoots at the enemy. This is Commander-in-Chief Han Sup. He orders the soldier to stand up. Humanity has been waging an endless war against monsters for decades. After countless battles, there was almost nothing left of the human forces. Their main goal is finally right in front of them. Suddenly, Han Sup finds himself in the center of a huge golden magic circle. He looks at the bright glow in bewilderment, not understanding what is happening. His comrade screams in alarm as he sees the commander being engulfed in light. He is summoned to another world where he finds himself bound in golden chains. Han Sup is confused as he tries to figure out where he is and what these glowing shackles are. An old man in a robe welcomes him to the Empire as a hero from another world. He is asked to defeat the Demon King and save this world from destruction. Han Sup is furious and demands an explanation and wants to return home to Korea. The old man orders him to be silent, and his hand flares with golden magic. A magical oath is placed on him, causing his body to writhe in pain. They explain to him that magic will not cause harm if he is obedient. Overcoming the pain, he asks with hatred if this is really politeness. He is handed a sword and again begged to defeat the evil Demon King. As a reward, he is vaguely promised the opportunity to return home. Han Sup silently considers their proposal, weighing the pros and cons. With tears in his eyes, he agrees and is thrown back into battle. Thus, he became a hero from another world in the service of a foreign empire. He worked tirelessly and went on countless campaigns. He fought monsters, fulfilling all the endless orders of the empire. Years passed, 3, 5, 10 years, and he continued to fight. Having sacrificed his youth, he finally defeated the Demon King and dreamed of freedom. But the old man tells him about a new mission, destroying his hopes. Han Sup says in despair that this is not what he was promised. They explain to him that now he must destroy the enemies of the Empire. His latest target is identified as a knight named Badal, with the promise of freedom after that. He understands that he has no choice and curses his slave lot. He attacks the Night Kingdom, sowing fire and destruction around him. He confronts Badal and says bitterly that he had no choice. He apologizes to the dying knight, but the latter asks him not to do it. The dying knight warns that the same fate awaits the winner. Han Sun is relieved to think that it's all over and he will be able to return home. The general pierces Han Sun from behind with his sword, calling him a hero from another world. The general praises Han Sun for his years of service, calling him the Empire's faithful hunting dog. Han Sun is horrified to realize that he was deceived and was never intended to be sent home. The general says that they don't need it, because a hunting dog can only bite. The general bids farewell to the dying Han Sun, who regrets his naivety. Before his death, Han Song vows revenge and the complete destruction of the cursed empire. On the same night that one life died, another began, and the Duchess was informed of the birth of a son. A beautiful woman with blonde hair looks tenderly at the baby and says that she is his mother. The baby looks at the man standing next to his mother and tries to remember where he saw this face. He recalls that this man, Duke Sax, is the greatest necromancer on the continent. He realizes that he is in the necropolis, the capital of forbidden magic, and his rebirth stone has worked. The rebirth stone was the only artifact he hid to free himself from the leash. He realizes his good fortune, having been reborn as the firstborn into one of the most elite families in the empire. The baby happily thinks that this time he was born with a golden spoon in his mouth. He plans to grow up, learn necromancy, and destroy all the imperial bastards. The parents notice that their newborn son is not crying, and the father worriedly asks the nanny about it. The mother asks the nanny to check the condition of the child, who is strangely silent, although he is breathing evenly. The baby, with a serious look, thinks that he is not a child, and tears are not so easy to provoke. The nanny reassures the parents, telling them that the baby's breathing is stable and there is nothing to worry about. The father thinks that the child's silence may be a bad omen, but the nanny offers a solution. The nanny smiles and spanks the baby on the bottom to make him cry. The child stubbornly holds back his tears, and the nanny is surprised by his fortitude. The mother takes her son in her arms and he mentally expresses outrage at the adult's behavior. The woman gently hugs the baby and he calms down. The warmth of his mother's hands awakens a long-forgotten memory in Han-sun. He remembers his past life, full of loneliness and pain, and cannot recall such warmth. His new mother's hand radiates a love he has not known for many years, and tears come to his eyes. An adult inside Han-sun can't help but cry loudly like a normal baby. 8 years have passed, and Dale's parents, lying in bed, are amazed at how quickly time flies. The mother asks if Dale is still in the office, and the father replies that his son takes after him. The father notices his son's interest in magic, but the mother reminds him of the promise he made. Alan clarifies that this is about a promise not to teach Dale necromancy. She is glad that he remembers, and he tenderly confirms this. Alan calms his wife and talks about a gift for his son, but their conversation is interrupted by noise. An agitated maid runs into the bedroom and reports that something has happened to the young master. The parents run into the office and see Dale in the center of a flash of magical energy. The mother runs up to her son and asks worriedly about his well-being, while the father analyzes the situation. Alan, the great necromancer, senses that the air in the room is filled with mana. Dale realizes that at 8 years old, he can already release mana and asks to be released. Father asks menacingly if Dale released the mana from his body. Dale panics as he tries to figure out how to respond without revealing his true identity. The father smiles and praises his son, saying that this was to be expected. He regrets that he cannot teach Dale necromancy, which shocks the boy. Dale's mother asks him to come back into the room, and he agrees with a smile. A father sits alone and ponders a gift for his gifted son. Sometime later, a grand banquet is held in honor of Dale's birthday. The guests in the hall are discussing the magnificent celebration and are waiting for the appearance of the young gentleman. Dale sits alone on the second floor, watching the bustling hall below. He thinks how tiresome it is that so many people have gathered for his birthday. He feels awkward about this attention because in his past life, he was an outcast. He remembers how he recently trashed his father's office and is still upset. His mana went wild from the memories of the hero's life that the book evoked. After overhearing his parents' conversation, he decides to ask his father to teach him necromancy. Back in the present, Dale doubts the success of his plan. Mom appears with a stranger in a hood and congratulates him on his birthday. Dale asks who the woman is, and his mother prepares to introduce them. This is Lady Sepia, elder of the Blue Tower and renowned master of water magic. His mother announces that Sepia will be his new teacher, much to Dale's surprise. Dale is stunned that he has been hired as a teacher by an elder from the Blue Tower. He understands that his mother does not want him to study dark magic. Teacher Sepia asks Dale to speak with her alone, and he agrees. In the snowy forest, Sepia says that she was asked to teach him only water magic. She asks if he is disappointed since he probably wanted to study something else. A surprised Dale asks how she knew about his desire to study necromancy. Sepia explains that the terms of his parents' marriage are known throughout the empire. His father promised Lady Helena that the dark legacy would not be passed on to their children. On their wedding day, even the elders of the Black Tower wore white. Sepia promises to find a way to convince Lady Helena to allow him to study. She formally asks if Dale will accept her as his teacher. Dale wonders why the elf isn't bothered by necromancy, which goes against nature. Sepia laughs cheerfully, finding his question very funny. She rhetorically asks whether the resurrection by the priests is the will of nature. For her, necromancy and resurrection are one and the same, which impresses Dale. Sepia begins the lesson with the goal of forming the first mana circle from the fragment. Dale is happy with this goal, as the first circle of mana is necessary for using spells. At her direction, he places his hand on his heart and concentrates completely. He reflects that this world, unlike Earth, is completely filled with mana. But ordinary creatures, not like ancient dragons, cannot control raw mana. Therefore, a heart mana circle is needed to filter and process this raw mana. After collecting the fragments, you need to make the assembled circle rotate evenly around it. Yeah, so the circle is the process by which mana gets to the heart, just like the teacher said. Teacher Sepia asks him to carefully begin circling the mana around his heart. She says it takes a month, so there's no need to rush. But the boy is already calling her. He asks in surprise if he has already succeeded in creating a rotating ball of mana. The teacher is amazed because the child, having just started training, formed a circle in minutes. She asks Dale to try to release his magical power through the created circle. Dale calmly agrees and concentrates on the magic sphere in his hand. Usually, even a simple release of mana through a circle is not always possible for novice mages. He thinks that at this level, he will not take revenge on the Empire, because in his past life, he was weak. But this body inherited the talent and easily accepts mana, allowing it to learn various magic. Now you have to concentrate and let the mana flow to your fingertips to create it. He will create the most deadly shard, which will be aimed straight at the throat of the Empire. The teacher is shocked, because he crystallized magic into a perfect ice bolt. Dale launches the ice projectile he created towards the tree as she watches. The projectile hits the ground in front of the tree with tremendous force, raising rocks and snow. She notes that the splinter was hard enough to pierce the tree. Dale looks at her with a proud smile, and she wonders who he really is. She thought that at best he would move mana, but he created the element of ice. It was basic magic, but it absorbed the cold perfectly, strengthening the spell. Dale looks worriedly at the frozen teacher and asks if he did something wrong. She thinks the complexity of his formula is beyond the capabilities of an ordinary child. The process of creating the spell involved rotating, accelerating, and overloading magical energy. His magic contained 3 golden ratio formulas, and he applied them unconsciously. The teacher, with a strange smile, says that this is nonsense and understands the Duke's words. Later in the office, the Duke asks her if this means she can't teach Dale. The Duke reminds her that since Dale reached the first circle in minutes, she is obliged to train him. She replies that he immediately cast a perfect and deadly spell. She finds it hard to believe that an 8-year-old child used a combat magic formula. She informs the Duke that young Lord Dale has an undeniable talent for murder. The Duke asks if she, the Tower Elder who is against violence, would refuse. She denies this and says that, on the contrary, she wants to guide him on the right path. The Duke sees no reason to refuse and mentions his dark magic, which he wanted to pass on to his son. He realizes with horror that young Master Dale has already mastered the magic he wanted to teach him. The teacher says that she respects the promise he made to Lady Helen, which she has heard a lot about, but this does not give him the right to decide the future of such a talented child as the young master. Dale stands outside the door but can't hear what exactly they're saying inside. He sits down on the floor by the wall, sadly assuming that the conversation is about him. He remembers how surprised the Tower Master Sepia was, because he did not expect such power from the spell. The boy decides that from now on he will have to control his strength more carefully. Dale asks Uncle Helmut in surprise what he is doing here. Instead of answering, the knight asks where the boy himself disappeared to. Helmut laughs, saying he was away protecting the ducal family. He picks up the boy in his arms, adding that he has defeated terrible monsters. Dale guesses with a smile that his uncle was in the dungeon. The appearance of dungeons or an infestation of monsters is a serious problem for any territory. Monsters attacking civilian areas cause massive damage. Therefore, knights of each house dedicate themselves to clearing out unexplored dungeons. The situation in the Duchy of Saxe is more serious than in other territories, and the reason for this is the narrator himself. After the hero's victory over the Demon King, Duke Saxe was ordered to subjugate his territory. Dale thinks the technical term for this is throwing away the leftovers. The boy asks Uncle Helmut to take care of himself, and he is surprised by the young lord's concern. The Duke of Saxe appears and greets Helmut, appreciating his hard work during the raid. The Duchess enters with her maids, and Dale, bowing, is surprised by his mother's appearance. The Duchess runs up to Dale, and the Duke says he is proud of him for reaching the first circle. Dale's father congratulates him and invites him to ask for whatever he wants. Dale wonders if his father will resort to trickery if he asks him to teach him necromancy. In a flashback, Dale promises his father to try harder, while in the present, Helmut can hardly contain his laughter. Lying in bed, Dale thinks how tiring it is to try to act like a child. In the nightmare, a man greets Han Sun, who is being held. The man mocks Han Sun, saying that people are cunning and it is easy to become soft. He continues to mock, asking if Han Sun has forgotten about revenge and the warmth and comfort. The villain, with a menacing grin, declares that the Empire will find Han Sun. Dale wakes up screaming from a nightmare, a ball of blue energy flaring in his hands. He writhes in pain, feeling like his heart is about to burst from the overabundance of mana. The room fills with energy, and the boy realizes that this is a riot of mana. Staggering, he curses the Empire for causing his suffering. He runs outside in the hope that fresh air will help, but he only gets worse. A woman appears behind him and remarks that he appears to be in a difficult situation. Dale recognizes Teacher Sepia, who sees his mana rampage and senses danger. Sepia reaches out to his chest, fearing that anger will take hold of him irreversibly. The mana riot stops, and Sepia calmly calls Dale's name. The teacher explains that the essence of magic is a mirror of the heart, so it is individual for each magician. She says his talent is to take lives, and it is very dangerous. Sepia considers it lucky that she will be the one teaching him and hands him the book. Dale realizes with horror that he has a magical tome of necromancers in his hands. Sepia smiles warmly and says that perhaps it is fate, and from now on, she will be with him. The shocked boy hugs her and she asks if he needs help. A few days later, they stand outside the Northgate Plains and Dale sees rabbits. Sepia asks Dale to remember how he went hunting with his father. A powerful magical arrow made of ice flies straight towards the white rabbit. The teacher notices that the boy's hands do not shake when he takes someone else's life. Sepia addresses Dale as he stands over the body of a rabbit in a snowy forest. She asks with a smile if he knows the reason why everyone's magic is unique. Magic materializes what is in the heart, revealing the inner world of a person. Spell names like Firewall are just a tool for the imagination. The red magic tower values order achieved through brute force. The blue magic tower, on the other hand, values order through harmony and water. The philosophy of each tower is embodied in the form of their magic and spells. Dale uses necromancy to raise a dead rabbit as a zombie. He skillfully controls his body using mana threads attached to his head and spine. The animated red-eyed bunny is ready, and Dale moves on to the next step. The boy uses water magic to cover the zombie rabbit in a thick layer of ice. The rabbit is now protected by durable ice armor with sharp spikes. Sepia decides to test the protection of the created armor and prepares her attack. She releases a powerful bolt of energy that slams into the rabbit. Dale laughs happily as he managed to block the teacher's shot. Sepia praises him for his excellent work and notices that he wants to ask something. He hopefully asks to be taught how to better use water magic. The teacher abruptly refuses him, which greatly surprises the boy. She explains that developing water magic requires a deeper understanding. Most beginners find it difficult to master even one type of magic, let alone two. Sepia considers his request to be excessive ambition, almost impossible at his age. Dale is upset because she promised that they would find their way together. That night, the boy studies books alone in a huge study. He is determined to prove that there is nothing he cannot do himself. Surrounded by a dark aura, he vows to become so strong that she will not be able to refuse him. The next day, Sepia notices he looks tired, but he says he was just getting ready. She advises him not to overexert himself, and he confidently extends his hand to her. Dale easily creates a complex magic circle, which he has already mastered. The ice armor explodes, shocking Sepia, and the rabbit begins to gather dark energy. The zombie rabbit concentrates a huge sphere of unstable dark magic in its paws. The sphere explodes, scattering dark energy and ice shards in all directions. Sepia is forced to put up a magical shield to protect herself from a powerful attack. Dale calmly explains that he combined the corpse explosion and the ice explosion into one. He holds water and darkness magic in his hands, asking if he is considered a dual magician. The teacher was completely amazed, as she had never seen such a method of attack. The combination of the two explosions created a massive area of effect attack. Sepia understands that this magic could only be created by someone who has dedicated their entire life to battle. A man with red eyes contemplates a mental image of a child who looks away in surprise. A knight in armor greets the young master and Lady Sepia upon returning from a campaign. He says that this time they defeated a small group of monsters. Another knight adds that the Black Cavalry had their work cut out for them. The narrator introduces the Black Cavalry, the unrivaled warriors of the Duchy of Saxena. Their knight captain, Sir Helmut, is one of the 7 swordmasters on the continent. The boy, smiling, reminds the knight of his promise to teach him how to wield a sword. The knight laughs and confirms that he has not forgotten, and the boy says goodbye to him. As he leaves, Helmut advises not to linger in the cold. The teacher suggests going back, and the boy agrees, looking at the castle in the distance. That same night, Lady Sepia is talking to someone while pouring tea. She reports that young Master Dale has completed his first circle of necromancy and water magic. The boy's father, Lord Noir, begins to say that they asked her for something different. Sepia, surprised, clarifies that they only asked to teach him water magic. She explains that as a mentor, she wanted to teach him everything he wanted. Dale's mother asks him to continue his training in water magic if he wants to. The teacher agrees and promises to take care of him in the future. Sepia sincerely apologizes to Lord Noir for breaking the promise she made. The mother laughs, calling their child extraordinary, because he became a double mage at the age of 8. The father looks worried, admitting that his son sometimes scares him. He confesses to his wife that he would like to teach Dale necromancy himself. The father imagines that the boy will become an excellent student. As a father, He wanted his son to inherit his legacy. Lord Noir covers his face with his hand and asks Elena for forgiveness. Elena reminds that people are afraid of necromancy and call it death magic. She asks to train him so that he becomes a necromancer capable of ignoring other people's opinions. The husband agrees and vows to do everything to make their son the best. So it's the first day of school, and Dad says he's very disappointed in Dale. He reproaches his son for reviving lives without even suspecting that he had control over them. Dale justifies that this is all the teacher taught him. As soon as the boy showed his father the basics of necromancy, he sighed and brought him here. His father forbids him to use even such basic spells while he is teaching him. The training will begin with memorizing the bone and muscle structure of all life forms. The boy obediently agrees with his father, bending over the book. He memorized every letter in books that in his world only doctors could read. Father says that Dale has mastered the basics and allows him to move on to practical magic. Now they will begin the real work, and the boy readily agrees. Dale is surprised to find a goblin's corpse on the altar. His father notices his puzzled expression and smiles. Father says that a skilled necromancer can turn a simple soldier into a death knight. Dale's father offers him the chance to control a regular undead soldier and asks how he will do it. Dale realizes that controlling a bipedal goblin is much more difficult and orders him to shoot. The undead goblin lunges forward, and Dale compares controlling it to a complex puppet. Dale realizes his mistake. The goblin's joints have frozen due to post-mortem rigidity. The boy is in a panic and doesn't know what to do in this situation. The father puts his hand on his son's shoulder and says that strengthening the body was a good idea. He explains that a side effect of this enhancement is limited mobility. The father demonstrates his power by creating a powerful vortex of dark magic around the goblin. He explains that the rib cage is designed to protect the organs and changes it. The father teaches his son to understand the structure of the goal and change it to suit his needs. He says that changing bodies is the basis of black magic. Dale asks his father to teach him the mentality of the black magic tower. The father looks at his son and asks if he is ready to hear the truth. He gets down on one knee and says that the truth is always hidden within death. To know the truth, you must first understand the full weight of life. Dale remembers the past, where a man on his knees begs the hero for mercy, but the hero raises his bloody sword, not listening to the pleas. Dad notices that Dale doesn't look well and asks if he's okay. Rumors that the Duke was teaching his son dark magic quickly spread throughout the Empire. The Duke's violation of his oath caused a huge uproar in the Empire. Dale has captured the attention of the entire Empire, and now all eyes are on him. A few weeks later, Dale trains with a knight on the duchy's grounds. Their wooden swords clash in a furious fight. Dale throws a jumping punch, but his opponent blocks it with ease. The knight praises the boy, but he understands that his opponent is giving in to him. Dale asks with a sly smile if the knight dropped his sword on purpose. The knight denies this and says that Dale is using techniques from real combat. He says that Dale's skill is excellent, but mages are always protected by knights. Therefore, he does not need to train so hard with the sword. The knight thinks the boy shouldn't put himself through this, but Dale has a reason. Dale replies that it is not fitting for a duke's son to rely only on guards and magic. The knight is delighted with the answer and says that he would dream of having such a son. Dale's mother approaches them and notices their high spirits. She says she came to see how hard her son trains. His mother reminds him of the birthday present he asked for. She is pregnant and says that he will have to take care of his little sister. 10 months later, the whole family gathered around the mother's bedside with her newborn. Dale looks at his sister tenderly and cannot believe his happiness. Dale's father offers to hold his sister, which greatly embarrasses him. His mother encourages him, and Dale realizes that holding the baby isn't that hard. Dale asks his mother if his newborn sister looks like her, and she remarks how happy the baby is. He carefully holds his sister in his arms, and his mother asks how he is feeling. Dale tells his father that his sister, although easygoing, feels like a very heavy responsibility. The father explains to his son that this is the meaning of life and asks him not to forget it. Dad reminds him that it's time for Dale to go to class with teacher Sepia, who is already waiting for him. Elf Sepia announces that their lesson today will be practice for real combat. Dale hesitantly asks if he should fight seriously. Sepia offers to show him what he has learned and easily repels his ice attack. She catches his magic projectile with her hand, saying that his first attack was too slow. The teacher asks with a smirk if it is too impudent for the student to be condescending to her. Sepia attacks back, and Dale panics, realizing he urgently needs a barrier. He manages to create an ice bracer, and thinks that without the block, he would have been seriously injured. Sepia is impressed by how quickly her student was able to create ice armor for protection. She suggests repeating it, and Dale begins to recite the formula for creating an ice wall. He puts all his power into the spell and erects a huge wall of ice in front of him. Sepia is surprised that he was able to create such a powerful defense right in the middle of a battle. She realizes that he has improved the structure of mana, making the ice incredibly dense and durable. The teacher touches the wall and wonders why Dale used a protective spell. She assumes that after her attack, he simply needed a little break. But Dale recites a new formula, and the ice wall begins to glow from within. He gives the command, "Explode," and the wall in front of Sepia bursts into bright light. Dale mentally calls his creation a grenade, and the wall shatters into thousands of sharp fragments. He sees that his tactics have worked and thinks about the complex spell he just cast. He compacted the ice to its limit and then exploded it, turning an ordinary wall into a powerful grenade. Dale calls out for the teacher in horror when he sees her motionless silhouette in the center of the ice explosion. Sepia appears nearby, unharmed, and Dale is relieved to realize that he only blew up an illusion. She smiles and praises him for his impressive and very clever magical technique. Sepia touches the scratch on her cheek, surprised that a first circle mage could injure an elder. Dale says with alarm that he didn't mean to hurt her during training. She replies that she is grateful for this wound, because it proves his complete trust in her. Sepia says she is immensely proud of him as a teacher and considers him an excellent student. She strokes his head and he shyly replies that he created the formula thanks to her lessons. Later, Dale's father asks Sepia about the wound, and she says she was careless in class. Her father thanks her for everything, but Sepia replies that it is a joy for her to teach such a talent. He asks her for one more favor, and the elf readily agrees to help. Father reports that a group of orcs have crossed the mountains and invaded their territory. He announces his intention to send Dale to this battle, shocking Sepia. The teacher objects, claiming that the young master is not yet at all ready for a real battle. The father calmly explains that no one expects his son to fight on the front lines. He firmly states that the defense of the territory is the direct responsibility of their house Sax. Father says that as the Duke's heir, Dale must understand his responsibility. Teacher Sepia anxiously asks what exactly she should do. The Duke, with a sly smile, announces that he entrusts his artifact to Dale. He asks Sepia to guide the boy until he learns to control his power. They show an artifact, an object that is endowed with enormous power and its own will. It can only be used by offering one's mana or life itself as payment. The more powerful the artifact, the more dangerous and uncontrollable it becomes for its owner. The Sax family has long mastered the art of handling such forces. Dale's father informs him that as the heir, he must prepare for the coming battle. Dale is delighted by the news of the battle. He has been waiting for this for a long time. Sepia clarifies that he will join the squad to destroy the orc horde. However, first, the boy must learn to control the power of darkness of their family. Dale looks with admiration at the Demon King's artifacts they control. Father warns not to compare them to ordinary things, and Dale feels a powerful mana. The Duke confirms that they are all extremely dangerous and orders that they not be touched thoughtlessly. Suddenly, the father and teacher notice that the boy has disappeared somewhere. A minute ago, Dale was alone, wondering which artifact would suit him. One of the artifacts speaks to him, saying that it senses his hatred and thirst for revenge. Other artifacts also begin to call out to Dale, offering him their power. The boy realizes that these dark artifacts resonate with his deep grievances, but he decides with a smile that this is not enough. He needs something much stronger. Dale's gaze falls on the mysterious cloak, and he wonders where it came from. Coming closer, he is surprised to recognize it as the legendary Shadow Cloak. During the Age of Heroes, this artifact gave its owner power over shadows. The father screams his son's name in horror, but Dale just looks at him in confusion. The boy's consciousness plunges into a dark void, where the voice of the cloak repeats that it is hungry. This is no ordinary shadow. Its previous owner was able to summon real shadow storms. To control the cloak, the owner must force its shadow creature to obey. A huge sphere of dark energy appears around Dale, frightening observers. Sepia is worried, and her father is afraid that Dale will lose his mind and be eaten. The teacher panics, and the Duke decides that he will have to pull his son out by force. But before they can intervene, the sphere of darkness dissipates. Dale emerges from it unharmed, calmly responding to his father. He assures the teacher that he is fine, but she cannot believe her eyes. The father is shocked to think how the child was able to so easily master the powerful artifact. Dale asks his father a question, and his father allows him to speak. With an innocent smile, the boy asks if he can touch the other artifacts. The father reluctantly agrees, and Dale happily begins exploring the vault. A few days later, during training, the knight recognizes the shadow cloak on the boy. Dale confirms this and says that everything is fine, except for a slight tingling sensation. Knight Helmet is surprised, and Dale assumes that he was alone. Dale thinks the shadow creature has become attached to him because he is lonely. The boy thanks Uncle Helmet, and his shadow takes on a toothy form. Helmet approaches Dale with an unexpected request. Dale asks for a real sparring match, which shocks the knight. Helmet happily agrees and prepares for the fight, and Dale promises to try his best. Dale understands that a fight with one of the continent's masters will not be easy. Helmet promises not to use aura and to fight only using the basics of fencing. The boy doubts, because the knight's credo is to always fight seriously. Dale's real goal in this sparring is to practice using the shadow cloak. This battle will be a test that will determine the true value of the artifact. Dale starts the fight using the shadow blade throw attack. Helmet easily deflects the shadow blades with his sword. Dale is amazed, as the knight parried the blow with sheer force. Grinning, Helmet announces that it is now his turn to attack. The knight rushes to attack, but is met by sharp spikes from the shadows. Helmet dodges and goes for an overhead strike, but Dale blocks it with a shadow. A powerful blow throws the knight back, leaving a deep crater on the ground. Helmet doesn't believe the boy blocked a blow that could break ordinary swords. Dale understands the difference between a normal weapon and a high-level artifact. The knight offers to exchange blows 10 more times, and the fight continues. The watching knights whisper, as no one has ever withstood more than 2 blows from Helmet. They feel an indescribable wall rise between them and Dale. A few days later, Dale's mother tells him that she will talk to his father again. She can't let him go to a dangerous place, but he is calm, because his loved ones will be nearby. Mother is worried, but Dale says he must become stronger for the future of the duchy. When the time comes, he will need strength to protect his family. He asks his mother to let him become strong enough to protect her. Seeing his determination, the mother gives her consent with a smile. Dale mounts his horse and promises his mother that he will be back soon. At dawn, the troops are ready to leave for the temporary base. Dale's father suddenly orders him to give the order to go on the road in his place. He says that one day his son will command their proud cavalry corps. Dale realizes that this is his first battle as their leader. The boy gives the command, and the proud swords of the House of Saxe answer him with a battle cry. 250 cavalrymen and elite rangers are participating in the operation. Their target is approximately 1,000 orcs fleeing cold and hunger. The plan is to strike first, setting an ambush near the Saxe River. There is only one way for 250 people to quickly cross a deep river. An elf comes forward and says that she will build an ice bridge. The boy looks at his teacher with delight, grateful for her help. The elf teacher uses a powerful spell to create a huge ice bridge across the river. She turns to the others and gestures for them to cross the bridge she has created. The riders cross the bridge, and their leader thanks the elf Sepia for her help. A boy named Dale says goodbye to his teacher, ready to go into battle. Sepia looks after him with a strange, warm smile on her face. The Duke notices her anxiety and thinks how much the student makes the teacher worry. A few moments later, the action moves to the orcs' temporary base near the rocks. A secretive squad of rangers called the Winter Guardians prepares to ambush the enemy. Fire arrows rain down on the orc camp, sowing panic and destruction. A wounded but enraged orc lets out a furious roar among his fallen kin. The commander gives the order, calling for the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Cavalry battalions. The cavalry forms into battle formation and quickly charges towards the orcs. Dale and 2 companions watch the battle begin from a high place. He mentally analyzes the tactics, noting the enormous force of the charge of the charging cavalry. Spears, enhanced by the knight's aura, easily pierce even the tough hide of orcs. Dale is amazed at how one-sided the battle seems, and the Duke confirms the strength of their forces. However, one of the knights warns young Master Dale, advising him not to relax. Suddenly, orcs with large shields stop the cavalry charge, engaging in close combat. The commander realizes that the ambush did not destroy the enemy and decides to retreat to regroup. A bright signal flare soars into the sky, signaling all units to retreat. 2 orcs watch the human troops retreat with an angry growl. One of the knights does not have time to retreat, and the orc pierces him with his weapon. Dale sees the fallen knight and realizes that the others believe he is beyond saving. He watches with anger as the others simply watch the wounded man as the orc approaches. The boy understands that if he rides on horseback, he will not have time to save the knight. He decides to use magic and alters the formula for the ice bolt to be a sniper shot. His eyes flash blue as he adds the ballistic equation to the spell. Dale creates a new spell, Barrett's Ice Bolt, in the form of a magic bullet. The Duke is amazed by the incredible accuracy of the shot, made from such a great distance. Immediately after the shot, Dale rushes on horseback to the battlefield to the surprised cries of his companions. The Duke stops the knight who is about to follow the boy. He is impressed that Dale has created such original and powerful magic at such a young age. The Duke comes to the conclusion that Dale's inner world is nearing its end. While the rest of the orcs regroup, one of them looks at his fallen comrade. Arriving at the scene, Dale sees the rescued knight and realizes he has two problems. Firstly, his body was frozen in panic. And secondly, his formula was too long for combat. He understands why magicians study simplified formulas and decides to shorten his own. While a new orc runs towards the knight, Dale comes up with a short name for the spell. He hesitates about the length of the name, but ultimately decides that it will do. Dale says the name of his spell, Ice Bullet, with a smirk. A powerful beam of ice erupts from his hands and pierces the orc's head. The rescued knight, in shock, asks why young Master Dale risked his life for him. Dale reassures him, saying that House Saxe would never abandon a loyal knight. The knight notices two more orcs running towards them and calls out to Dale in alarm. The orcs rush into the attack with a furious roar, swinging their weapons. Dale uses a new spell, Shadow Blade, creating a massive scythe of darkness. He coldly orders them to be destroyed, and the orc looks at the Shadow Blade in horror. He spots the last orc and, with a wink, readies the ice bullet again. When all the enemies are defeated, the knight admits that he cannot move from fear. Dale easily lifts the knight and hands him over to Uncle Helmut, who has arrived with the cavalry. Uncle Helmut leads the cavalry into a charge, shouting praises to the House of Saxe and Dale. Sometime later, at the camp, Dale is informed of the successful completion of the operation. In the tent, Dale's father calls him for a talk and asks why he rushed behind enemy lines. The father asks with displeasure what made his son commit such a reckless act. The father demands an explanation, and Dale meekly agrees to answer. Dale reminds his father of his words that one day he would lead these knights. His father calls his arguments unconvincing, and Dale doesn't understand why he's so cold. Then Dale asks his father point blank why he just stood there and watched his knight die. The father explains that their lands are constantly under attack, and the knights should not hope for salvation. Dale says he still hoped for help, but his father sarcastically compares him to himself. He reproaches his son for giving the knights false hope of salvation from the outside. The father asks how many warriors will survive if they wait for help instead of fighting. He explains that the knights must fight to the limit, and only then will he intervene. Dale admits that his father was right and remembers that he knew this truth in his past life. The father praises his son's determination and asks him to never lose this will of spirit. The conversation ends, and Dale's father invites him to return to the castle. The story of how the young heir saved the knight from the horde quickly became the main gossip. The narrator shouts to the crowd that the young lord single-handedly defeated 1,000 orcs. The rumor, with a slight exaggeration, spread throughout the empire like wildfire. Dale himself felt awkward, but the incident gave the duchy new strength. Now the knights greet him on their knees, and the embarrassed Dale covers his face with his hand. He sheepishly tells the knights that such greetings are not necessary. One of the knights proudly tells him that he should be proud of himself. The knight calls on everyone to become stronger for the sake of the future of young Master Dale. Dale watches their efforts with a smile until a maid calls out to him. The maid announces the arrival of guests from the Orhart house, and everyone turns around. The knight thanks the maid and invites Dale to go and greet the guests. Dale thinks to himself that they have a special guest to greet. The guest turns out to be a representative of the martial arts House Orhart from the Fallen Kingdom. The narrator recalls how the Empire started a war in which House Orhart fell. Helmut's expression changes as he remembers the divine sword. Dale's father, sitting on the throne, asks his son about his training. The servant announces the arrival of the guests, and Dale asks that they be shown in with respect. The arriving guest introduces herself as Vanessa Orhart, a servant of Duke Saxon. Vanessa introduces her daughter Charlotte, who looks very unhappy. Charlotte angrily asks her mother why she bows her head to them. The Duke reacts calmly to the girl's insolence, attributing it to fatigue. Dale offers Lady Charlotte a tour of the castle. The girl angrily pushes his hand away and screams at him not to touch her. Charlotte calls them shameless nobles, and her mother demands an apology. Vanessa apologizes for her daughter's insolence, citing her instability. She says that a new manager was recently appointed to their territory. This man is known as the Holy Knight, but goes by the nickname King of Pig. They say he is looking for experienced swordswomen to produce an heir. He even targeted Vanessa's underage daughter, Charlotte. The girl barely managed to escape, But this horror cannot be erased from memory. Vanessa begs him to take her daughter as a servant to protect her. The mother hopes that this man will never be able to raise a hand against her again. Charlotte asks Dale where he is taking her, and he thinks about her choice. Dale asks with a smile if her hand is okay after the blow. He notices that she has been crying recently and realizes that she is still a child. Suddenly, Charlotte points a rapier at him and suggests a duel. She furiously orders Dale of House Saxe to draw his sword. Dale is surprised by her behavior and thinks that she is just doing whatever she wants. She demands to fight, but he first asks for a reason. Charlotte had heard rumors of him single-handedly killing 1,000 orcs. She wants to defeat him to prove to the whole world that she is stronger. Then everyone will understand that she is capable of protecting her home from Count Brandenburg. Dale's expression darkens as he remembers the Empire dog that once stabbed him in the back. He understands that they have a common goal. But first, she needs a dose of reality. He takes out a dagger and says that she is just a child who knows nothing. Dale challenges her to attack him using all her strength. She readily replies that she was just about to do so. Charlotte lunges for an attack, but Dale easily blocks her blow. She continues to attack, but he easily repels all her attacks. He notes that she deflects attacks with wrist flicks and even uses aura. The narrator explains that the mage generates mana through a circle in his heart. In the same way, the knight accumulates an aura in his body that exceeds his capabilities. Dale jumps over her and with a quick movement knocks the rapier out of her hands. The girl jumps and attacks Dale, but he easily blocks her glowing blade. She grins maliciously, confident that at this level the advantage is on her side. In her memoirs, the girl says that her father died before she was born. Her mother told her that she must protect their home as a proud daughter of the divine sword. Even after the fall of the kingdom, she did not stop her persistent training with the sword. She doesn't understand why this boy stops her attacks with ease again and again. Their blades clash again, and she is completely bewildered by his strength. Defeated, she falls to her knees and wonders why she can't win. Dale calmly replies that she is not the divine sword. He admits that her pride as the daughter of a great warrior is quite justified. He explains that she is now too weak to defend her home from their common enemy. Desperate, she asks what to do, and Dale introduces himself, stating his family. He swears in the name of his family to become the protector of her home, the home of Orhart. Dale promises to be her shield until she is strong enough to defeat the enemy herself. He asks her to swear to become a sword for him and his house, because her blade is worth it. The girl agrees with a slight smile, realizing that she cannot refuse such an offer. Charlotte Orhart bends her knee and swears allegiance to him on her knightly honor. From the outside, it might have seemed like just a simple, childish promise, but the determination behind that oath was as strong as an unbreakable vow. Later, in the Duke's office, it turns out that Charlotte has become a maid in their house. The father is surprised that she agreed without hesitation and asks his son what happened between them. Dale replies that they made a promise, and he swore to protect House Orhart. The Duke asks if his son made such an oath out of pity, but Dale denies it. He explains with a smile that she is the only heir to the divine sword with exceptional talent. Dale states that his goal is a new divine sword for the benefit of their duchy. The Duke smiles contentedly, approving of his son's plan. Dale gloats that this is a great blow to their enemy, Brandenburg. Meanwhile, in the capital of Old Teutonia, someone is screaming in rage. The High Lord is angry that he has been beaten to the punch. He yells at a subordinate that his men were unable to capture the little girl. A subordinate reports that the assassins sent were killed, possibly by Charlotte herself. He recalls the past, turning to his holy sword, Durandal. He promises the sword, his bride, to find the perfect heir at any cost. The Lord orders to contact the Raven Guild and send people to the Duke's territory. He is ready to pay any price to have the unfortunate girl Charlotte brought to him. A week passed. Charlotte settled into the residence and completed her maid training. Daily sparring with Dale became part of her new routine. On command, they cross swords, beginning another duel. Their training fight is filled with fast and precise movements. Their blades froze in collision again under the mentor's watchful gaze. Mentor Helmut reflects that this is just a duel between children who are not yet comparable to real knights, but he admits their speed and thirst for battle are astonishing for their age. The man stops the fight and praises Lady Charlotte for her excellent work. Charlotte asks to spare her from empty compliments and asks what she is missing. Sir Helmut asks her if she knows what the true essence of the rapier is. He replies that it is not about the blow, but the true essence of foil fencing is in the footwork. Helmut explains that while Dale was dodging, he was closing the distance, and she should have retreated. He points out that due to unnecessary hand movements, Her blade trembles, and the accuracy of the strike decreases. The mentor states that she will have to rebuild all her foundations from scratch. Helmet criticizes her stand, and Charlotte admits with annoyance that she didn't have a teacher. Helmet laughs, and Dale holds back an indignant Charlotte, who is called weird. He kindly pats her on the head, and Dale thinks that with a teacher like that, she will quickly catch up with him. Dale recalls that creating a mana circle through the heart can take decades. His teacher asks in surprise if he has already completed the second circle of mana. He remembers that a mage's power is measured in mana revolutions, and for the first circle, it is 300 per minute. His second circle has already reached 400 revolutions, which is more than the norm for creating a third. Having reached the second circle, the boy decides that it is time for an experiment. He plans to improve the existing ice bullet spell. First, it strengthens the molecular bonds of the ice to increase the mass and hardness of the bullet. He then creates an imaginary barrel to increase the speed and creates an armor-piercing bullet. A powerful ice projectile flies out of his hand at great speed and hits the target. He is surprised at how easily he was able to create such a powerful spell thanks to the second circle. The teacher praises him for his quick learning, and he thanks her for her help. She thinks about his past actions and realizes that he always uses power for good. Although he sometimes scares her, she trusts him and hugs her student tenderly. The action returns to the present, and Dale remembers how the teacher scared him. He thinks with embarrassment that she sees him as a simple child, but he pushes these thoughts away. The boy decides to focus on training and summons a huge ice wall. A giant wall of sharp ice crystals rises before him. Now he creates a new spell, 12-gauge ice shot. Multiple ice projectiles hit the magic shield he created. He is pondering how to improve the spell when a familiar voice calls out to him. Charlotte emerges from behind the tree, and it turns out she was watching his training. She replies that she also trained and practiced her leg movements on Helmut's advice. Dale notices that she seems to enjoy fencing and decides to talk about the past. Charlotte bows and sincerely apologizes for her past rude behavior. He seriously agrees that she was indeed very rude to him, but then he smiles broadly and says that this time he forgives her. Dale says he likes the weather here because he can train until late at night. He's glad to think that someone else shares his feelings, and this makes him happier. Dale's parents watch him and Charlotte from the window, admiring how they look together. Dale's mother smiles and says that the children will have to be looked after. Dale understands that his fate is already being decided, and his mother considers it her duty to guide his feelings. Sometime later, on the outskirts of the duchy, Madame Sachs distributes food to those in need. Dale says his mother helps the poor in the city's slums every week. This year, Dale and Charlotte also started helping, but suddenly, a child runs up to them. A boy in rags grabs Charlotte's hand and begs for help, saying that his mother is in trouble. The child, with tears in his eyes, desperately asks for help. Dale and Charlotte run through the tangled alleys, separated from their nightly guard. Dale spots a man from the Thieves' Guild on the roof and realizes that their target is Charlotte. The boy guide says that he will now bring his mother and runs off into the alley. Suddenly, the children are surrounded by suspicious men in cloaks, ambushed in a dark dead end. One of the attackers says they only want the little lady and advises Dale to leave. The green-haired bandit smirks as he takes out a dagger and threatens Dale not to interfere. Dale stands before Charlotte and vows to protect her from the thugs, giving his full name. The bandit leader mockingly admires the nobility of the young aristocrat. He advises Dale to take the circumstances into account as his men prepare for the attack. Dale prepares for the fight, expecting his opponents to experience real pain. Charlotte whispers that she forgot her sword, but Dale confidently reassures her. Dale decides this is a great opportunity to try out his new shadow cloak technique. He activates his ability and dark shadows begin to envelop the attackers. The green-haired leader panics and shouts at his men to dodge. Dale explains that it is a new technique that creates shadow parasites. Shadow parasites penetrate the bandits' bodies, causing them to scream in pain. The leader watches in horror as his subordinates are engulfed by strange shadows. One of the bandits turns into an undead creature and screams in hunger, frightening his comrade. The bandits are confused, not understanding why their comrade does not attack the Duke's son. Suddenly, all the possessed bandits pounce on their green-haired leader. The leader defends himself using his aura-infused killing technique. He jumps, but Dale is already waiting for him below, activating a magic circle on the ground. A charge of buckshot flies out of the circle and hits the bandit leader's body directly. The wounded enemy remains on his feet, and Dale notes the strength of the aura holders. The leader lunges at Dale, but is torn apart by his own possessed subordinates. The created undead continue to torment the body, screaming that it wants to eat. After the fight, Dale approaches Charlotte and asks if she is okay. The last surviving bandit begs for mercy and promises to tell everything. Dale asks again if he is really ready to give out all the information, but Dale coldly replies that he is not particularly interested and prepares a spell. He tells Charlotte that this is the true face of the House of Saxe, who will protect her. Dale asks her if she's scared, and Charlotte quietly replies that she's a little scared. Charlotte asks Dale with a tender smile if he fought to protect her. In the flashback, Charlotte, still very young, swears allegiance to Dale. She promises that if his house becomes her shield, she will one day become his sword. Charlotte thanks Dale for showing her the future and promises to become stronger. The narrator explains that Dale took Charlotte in because of something his father did. Father Dale was tormented by guilt over the incident with Sir Badal that had happened long ago, so her decision to become his sword was much more significant than he thought. Meanwhile, at his estate, Count Brandenburg sits at the table in a gloomy mood. He clenches his fist in rage, cursing the current situation. The Count reads the letter inviting him to the Duchy of Saxe, realizing that the visit will be difficult. It was a challenge from Duke Noir, who demanded a report and would not accept refusals. Even a great swordsman saint like the Count could not disobey this order. The Duke thanks the Count for coming a long way and arriving at the castle. Duke Noir greets his guest with a grin, apologizing for the modest reception. The armored Count laughs nervously, saying that the Duke's summons was very urgent. The Duke mentions that there is growing unrest throughout the Empire following the attempted kidnapping. The Count grips the hilt of his sword and says that he guesses the reason for the summons. The Duke unleashes dark magic, sarcastically asking if the Count could have been involved in the shameful affair. A sudden gust of dark energy throws the Count and his knights into the air. The Count's knights are engulfed in dark flames and scream in terror. Even the Knights of the Order of St. Magdalene cannot resist the Duke's dark magic. The Duke uses an advanced dark magic called Storm to Oblivion. The Duke orders the Holy Warrior to kneel, and he is unable to resist. The Count shouts in rage, but the Duke coldly advises him to listen carefully. The Count realizes that the Duke is in complete control of the situation and has the right to do so. He didn't expect the Duke to go so far, since he had called him for the sake of peace. The Duke threatens to wipe out the entire House of Brandenburg if they touch the Saxe children. After a direct threat, the Duke calmly offers the tired Count a rest. The Count reluctantly thanks him for the generosity, but is forced to refuse the offer. The Duke wishes the Count a safe return home, and he walks away. Dale watches as his father demonstrates his strength to one of the Emperor's most loyal servants. This act will become a spark that will quickly ignite a flame throughout the Empire. Now it will be their duty to fight against the Holy Warrior and his supporters. In his office, the Duke reasons that the humiliation of the Holy Warrior will shake the Empire. He shows Sepia the corpses of the Thieves' Guild members who attacked Dale. The bodies of the attackers were brutally torn to pieces with horrific wounds. Seeing this, Sepia begins to doubt the correctness of his teachings for the first time. The Duke says that Dale's wisdom is needed to guide his talents and offers her a position as an advisor. Sepia understands that he is asking her not just to be a mentor, but to become part of the Saxe house. The Duke adds that Dale depends on her in many ways, and his strength alone will not be enough to raise her. Sepia accepts the Duke's offer with dignity. Her main task becomes to understand how this child sees the world. Time passes, and the day of Dale's 10th birthday arrives. Unlike last year, envoys from the imperial court are present at the celebration. A cunning red-haired man, Marquis Juris, appears among the guests. Some time ago, guests at a banquet admired the sumptuous dishes. One of the ladies is surprised that such magnificence is possible in the center of the Northern Territory. The narrator explains that this is the central nobility, the so-called Emperor's faction. Dale realizes that their visit is actually a hidden warning. This is a message from the imperial family not to ignore the insults of the Holy Warrior. The boy realizes that the messenger chosen for this purpose is standing right in front of him. Marquis Juris approaches Dale and addresses him as young master. He introduces himself as the Crimson Lord and says he is very pleased to meet you. Juris is the master of the Red Tower, seeking power through order and fury. The Red Tower mages are notorious for their idea that might is always right. Dale recalls that he himself was once subjected to their modification experiments. Juris calls Dale a genius prodigy with an unrivaled talent for magic. He also mentions rumors of Dale single-handedly destroying an orc horde at the age of 9. Dale politely thanks him for the compliments and wishes the Marquis a pleasant evening. Tired of the party, the boy goes outside alone to get some fresh air. He thinks he would prefer to train with Charlotte, but she serves as Elena's maid. Besides, if word got out about their sparring, It could be dangerous for her. Suddenly, Dale hears an angry shout ordering a servant to stand still. A girl in a maid's uniform lies on the ground and begs to be let go. A plump aristocrat shouts at her for daring to mention the Duke's name. A man with a dagger in his hand mockingly asks if everyone is busy with the celebration. He puts a blade to the girl's throat and threatens to cut her throat for resisting. Grabbing the girl, he tells her to be a good girl while Dale watches from behind cover. Dale can't hide any longer and loudly asks if the man is aware of his actions. The attacker turns around in surprise and asks the young gentleman what he is doing here. The man smirks, saying that Dale is too young for such an experience. He offers to personally teach the boy a thing or two while holding the crying maid. But Dale, with an icy glare, promises to show the impudent fellow a good time. He calms the maid and creates a shining magic circle in front of him. With his blue eyes glowing, Dale says that he will soon rid her of the villain. In a world built on hierarchy, no one expected him to be the one to attack. Dale fires a powerful magical blade of pure energy at the enemy. He had no intention of retreating, even though he knew it was foolish to challenge the Emperor's men. The wounded man falls to the ground and Dale coldly orders him to kneel. Dale furiously shouts at him to immediately kneel down and apologize to Miss Eva. The fat aristocrat angrily thinks that the servant girl he insulted turned out to be from the House of Saxe. The man who fell to the ground declares that he is the Emperor's representative and cannot be insulted. Dale sarcastically asks if the Emperor enjoys attacking servants for fun. The man yells at Dale in rage, not believing that he dared to say such a thing about the Emperor. Dale gives a final warning as a group of nobles, led by a man, approaches them. The arriving red-haired aristocrat watches what is happening with a grin, finding it interesting. The head of the Saxe house demands an explanation, and Dale reports that the guest tried to attack a maid. The head of the house scolds Dale for disrespecting Lord Petro, and he plays along, complaining about the boy. Dale yells furiously at Lord Petro, asking if he gave him permission to get up off the ground. The boy addresses the guests from the capital, reminding them of their duty to act on behalf of the Emperor. He accuses Lord Petro of defamation of the Emperor's name by attempting to attack a servant girl. The red-haired guest notes with admiration how smart the young master of the Saxe house turned out to be. He agrees with a grin that there is undeniable truth in the boy's words. Lord Juris speaks of how low the man who was entrusted with the Emperor's will has fallen. A flame bursts into flames in Lord Juris's hand, and he calls Lord Petro a filthy insect ready to burn. Lord Petro tries to crawl away in horror, begging for mercy. Juris unleashes fire magic on him without hesitation. Lord Petro, engulfed in flames, screams hysterically in unbearable pain. Juris tells Dale that he was right, and that it is his duty to destroy those who insult the Empire. Lord Juris sincerely wishes young Master Dale success, and he looks at him with confidence. When the Emperor's men leave, peace finally returns to the Saxe estate. The next morning, the same maid, Eva, comes into Dale's room to wake him up. The girl stands by the bed, clearly wanting to say something, but not daring to start a conversation. Finally, she thanks him and says that it is a great honor for her to serve such a gentleman. Dale reflects on her gratitude, realizing that he still has some time to get used to such feelings. He decides to use his name and position as the eldest son of the House of Saxe to destroy the Empire. Dale's father sits at the table and tells his son that he is very smart. However, he also notes that recently his son's behavior seems very strange to him. Dale begins to tell his father about what really happened to the hero from another world. His father is surprised by his confidence, and Dale remembers that in a past life he learned about the conspiracy. He tells how the Empire betrayed the hero, fearing that one day he might turn against them. Even after the hero's victory over the Demon King, the Empire did not eradicate the darkness from his lands. Instead, they gave the order to seize the lands of the defeated Demon King. The Empire demanded sacrifices from their house to expand its territory, and then gave them these lands. The father grimly realizes that the bloodshed in these lands will not stop until the darkness disappears. Because of this, people in the Empire began to call House Saxe a clan of darkness, pointing fingers at them. He understands that the Empire will eliminate them just as it did the hero, considering the Saxe house an internal threat. The father is shocked, but Dale insists that these are just logical conclusions drawn from the recordings. The official version says that the hero died in an honorable battle with the divine sword Betel. The father admits that he is surprised, because only a few initiates know the truth about the hero's death. The man says that if his theory is correct, then the Empire is simply an oppressor taking over weak countries. Dale's father asks what their house should do, but the boy replies that coexistence with the Empire is impossible. Therefore, Dale concludes, they must destroy the Empire, which shocks his father. The father angrily asks if the boy understands what he is proposing. Dale clarifies that he is not proposing an immediate uprising. The boy suggests doing it in 10 years, which surprises his father. He explains that resistance groups on all continents are already fighting for their independence. There are also vassals like the Duke of Saxe who are afraid to oppose the empire. The economy is shrinking, banditry is on the rise, and the effects of the war have only worsened. By then, Dale confidently declares, they will have gathered forces to defend their home from the empire. They will support resistance forces, operating in different regions to crush the empire. The father is impressed and laughingly admits that his son's talents truly know no bounds. He proudly says that from that day on, Dale is no longer just a 10-year-old kid. His father will treat him as his heir, the future head of the House of Saxe. As the head of the family, he will listen to the words of his son, who has waited so long for this day. Dale's father suggests that he voice his decision regarding their family without hesitation. Dale asks for permission to take the tower test in Necropolis. The tower trial is a kind of game that determines the rank of magicians. Defeating powerful guardians increases one's status, and the strongest one receives the title of Elder. The father doubts whether his son should go to such a dangerous place where he could die. His father thinks that it is too early for him since he has not passed the third round, but Dale is confident that he will do it soon. Usually, the third circle is completed by the age of 30, and it will not be easy even for him. Dale insists that this decision concerns both him and the entire House of Saxe. If he proves his worth in the test, his status as heir will strengthen his father's position. This way, he will gain a reputation based on trust, not on rumors and gossip. His father asks if that's why he wants to take the tower test, and Dale confirms. The father agrees and leaves the matter to the discretion of his son, who thanks him. A few days later, they arrive in the city of the dead, Necropolis. People bow humbly before them, greeting the Dark Duke. Dale looks tired and wonders if he's overdone it again. In the crowd, they notice the Duke of Saxe with the young master Dale, a genius of magic. Others whisper that he wields a sword as well as a knight, but one of them calls this absurd. The Academy's top graduate is confident of his victory and mocks Dale's fragile appearance. A man with brown hair greets them, paying respects to the Tower Master. The Duke greets Eris, the Tower Elder, who bows to young Master Dale. Father says that Eris will help Dale during the test. Dale tells Eris that he will be in her care, and she asks him to follow her. Eris announces that 59 Academy graduates are waiting for him for a joint test. She shows him a huge hall filled with tower test participants. Eris greets the assembled group and introduces herself as the tower's elder and secretary general. Eris announces the first test of the Tower of Dark Magic and asks to check the necklace of life on the neck. Dale looks at his necklace, learning that this is a battle royale-style battle for life points. When a precise hit is made, the enemy's necklace activates a protective spell and is destroyed. Eris explains that the attacker gets 1 life point, and the participant with 3 points moves on. Dale understands that the use of artifacts is prohibited and is a quick way to weed out newcomers. The other participants discuss Dale's young age and decide that they need to destroy this monster first. 2 smug participants smirk and discuss whether it is okay to attack the boy. Dale smiles confidently, because from the moment he entered the room, everyone became competitors. The test begins, and several mages immediately target Dale with their spells. One of the mages uses necromancy, summoning undead with a purple aura from underground. A summoned undead man with a bone knife in his hand rushes to attack the boy. The undead strikes the ground, but Dale manages to dodge at the last moment. Dale stands calmly behind, his own summoned skeleton grabbing the enemy undead by the head. Suddenly, other undead are frozen by the ice magic, causing surprise among the onlookers. The participants are shocked to realize that this is water magic, and the boy has mastery over both elements. Dale's ally, a blonde youth, shatters a frozen opponent with 1 blow. The necromancer who summoned the undead screams in rage at how they dared touch his soldiers. He uses a powerful spell to have his soldier grab Dale. The blonde-haired participant states that using water magic is a violation of the rules. He clarifies that only necromancy is allowed, and other enhancements are prohibited, and Dale calmly agrees. Eris watches the proceedings, noting that there is no rule against empowering the undead with anything other than dark magic. The blonde-haired youth orders his comrades to block the corpses and aim straight at Dale. Dale remembers with concern that the rules of the test also prohibit the use of artifacts. The enemy undead charge in, and Dale prepares to meet them in close combat. One of the dead men swings a bone blade at the boy, but he deftly dodges it. Dale catches the blade with a smirk, his hand enveloped in dark energy as he says he caught it. He delivers a powerful punch, and the undead's body begins to crumble from dark magic. From the decaying body of the dead man, Dale pulls out a large white sword. The enemies are horrified by how easily the undead was killed, and realize that this is no ordinary sword. Dale holds a sword he has just reforged from bones to increase its strength. The boy jumps into the air, preparing to attack the next dead soldier from above. With a loud battle cry, he brings his sword down on his opponent. With a powerful and swift blow of his sword, he cuts down another enemy. The necromancer watches in despair as his last dead soldier falls. Dale quickly approaches the living opponents, who do not believe that the mage wields a sword like that. The frightened necromancer asks young Master Dale to wait and says that he surrenders. But Dale doesn't listen to his pleas and without hesitation delivers the decisive blow. The defeated opponent calls Dale a monster, and the test ends for him. It is announced that young Master Dale will proceed further alone with 60 hit points. Dale looks at everyone confidently and says that this will be his first step forward. To pass the second stage of the tower test, you need to defeat the flesh golem. A massive flesh golem appears before Dale in the testing arena. The golem attacks, but Dale dodges, as all types of magic are now allowed. Although artifacts are still banned, this is more than enough for Dale. He decides this is a great opportunity to test the limits of his third circle. The golem slams his fist into the ground, raising dust and rocks. The monster is surprised when his hand is bound by dark magical energy. Dale smirks as he casts a spell called Accelerated Decay. Observers note that young Master Dale's magic is unusual. One of them wonders why Dale makes the enemy rot instead of destroying him outright. Dale recalls that in a past life, this strategy was called biochemical warfare. The observer doubts that anyone else understands the nature of his dark magic. The remaining participants, except Dale, will face a second test. The evening after the test, Dale stands alone by the fountain. His teacher Sepia appears and praises him for his excellent performance. He thanks her for her guidance, and she replies that she is proud of him. Dale unexpectedly invites teacher Sepia to go on a date with him. He says with delight that a festival is currently taking place in the city. Sepia agrees to go, and Dale happily shouts, "Hooray!" She thinks Dale must have a misunderstanding of the meaning of the word date. They come to the city festival of Necropolis, where people are having fun. With fireworks in the background, Sepia suggests he's tired after the ordeal. Dale cheerfully replies that he is fine, and there is still time until the next test. Dale remarks that the moon is beautiful, and Sepia agrees with him. He thinks that their silence does not cause discomfort, because it has always been like that with the Sepias. Perhaps it was because she believed in him from the very beginning. He recalls how he achieved the third circle during meditation a few days ago. He needed to surpass his limits and replenish his mana beyond the second circle. Only by enduring the raging mana was he able to reach his third circle. Suddenly, he finds himself in a snowy world and sees himself as a child. He understands that this is his inner world, which manifests itself during deep meditation. This is his world of awareness, which looks like a frozen, lifeless forest. From the very beginning, there was nothing in his inner world except absolute emptiness. And in this empty world, Master Sepia extended a helping hand to him. He thinks that it is she who brings light into his empty world. Sepia asks him again, confused, what he just said. He repeats that he likes her, which shocks the teacher. She hugs him with a smile and says that she likes him very much too. A few days later, the action moves to a high tower in the center of the city. On the 11th floor of the tower, Dale thinks that he has failed with Sepia. Dale decides that love can wait, and he needs to focus on his exam. The format of the test is announced: a one-on-one magical duel, the winner of which will advance to the 12th floor. His opponent turns out to be the third circle master Albert Rosenheim, who greets young Master Dale with honor. The 11th floor test allows you to use any artifacts. Magical strategies are also allowed, and the Necklace of Life does not guarantee the safety of the participants. Dale smirks. Now he can let loose and show off all his devastating power. Albert begins the fight by creating a powerful burst of energy in his hand and warning Dale to be on guard. A confident Albert declares that Dale's winning streak will end here. Albert attacks Dale with multiple magical projectiles using the Dark Arrow spell. Dale takes the attack calmly and challenges his opponent to block his response. Albert reiterates that his young opponent's winning streak has come to an end. Dale deftly dodges the magic arrows flying at him. Dale notes that attacking before the start of a fight is a clear violation of the rules. He understands that the judges did not stop the fight because they wanted to see his true strength. As Dale dodges the arrows, he thinks with annoyance that this is why he hates mages. Albert smiles ominously and casts a spell calling on his creations to rise up. Dark figures rise from the ground and bow before their creator in eternal service. Dale thinks with embarrassment at how ridiculous this performance of the Dark Servants was. Albert admits that Dale is definitely stronger than the average rookie and orders the servants to attack. Dale easily dodges a powerful axe blow from one of the servants. An irritated Albert yells that Dale can't win by simply avoiding attacks. The summoned creatures continue to attack, but Dale has already disappeared from their path. Suddenly, a huge and ugly monster appears behind Dale. The monster explodes, covering Dale with a powerful wave of dark magical energy. Albert smugly declares himself the winner of today's duel. After the explosion, Albert is surprised to find that Dale is nowhere to be found. He looks around in confusion, not noticing how a dark silhouette rises from the shadows behind him. Dale appears behind his opponent and calmly notes that he looks nervous. He explains that he used a sneak attack called Shadow Transformation. Albert thinks this is not enough to win, but Dale's shadow is already asking for permission to eat him. Dale smiles and allows his shadow to eat, but asks him not to overeat. Dark tentacles envelop Albert, and Dale notices that they are getting hot from hunger. At Dale's command, the shadow releases its victim, and Albert falls to the floor unconscious. The winner of the first round is announced. It is Dale, and his opponent is lying on the floor. Dale turns to the other mages and asks who's ready for round 2. One of the opponents immediately surrenders, saying that he just wants to live. All subsequent fights, except the final one, ended in victory by default. Breaking through the floor guardians, Dale continued to perfect his 3 magic circles. By the time he reached the 20th floor, a worthy opponent had finally appeared. This enemy turned out to be the Headless Horseman riding a terrible horse. Observers note that the Headless Knight created by the Elder is an enemy never seen before. Young Mr. Dale smiles smugly, anticipating a great achievement. Dale wonders if it will be boring if everything goes according to plan, and his eyes glow ominously. Shrouded in a dark aura, Dale confronts the Headless Knight. Suddenly, the Headless Knight freezes, causing confusion among the audience. To everyone's amazement, the mighty Headless Knight kneels before Dale. Obeying Dale's orders, the knight raises his sword over his own neck to end the torment. The knight's armor crumbles as Dale reflects on his incredible loyalty. Dale realizes he may have overdone it a bit given the reactions of those around him. The audience is shocked as the creation betrays its creator, proving that Dale has reached the level of an elder. Having decided that he has proven himself enough, Dale turns to leave. The observers watch in surprise as he heads towards the tower's exit. He decides not to go any higher, realizing that there is a line that cannot be crossed. Beyond the next tier lies a realm that even monsters fear. And this is where Dale's test ends. The master of the Magic Tower and his son are greeted with a ceremonial formation. All the nobility and elders demonstrate their devotion to father and son. Thanks to Dale's stunning performance, the northern territories begin to unite. The action moves to the north of the empire, to the snowy duchy of Saxe. The knights of House Saxe rush into battle with a cry for the glory of the young Lord Dale. After the test in the tower, Duke Saxe appoints Dale as the commander of the orc-killing squad. Despite his young age, no one doubted his competence as a commander. As the Duke's military heir, he gradually begins to unite the northern lands. Dale reports to his father that only 3 of the cavalry received minor wounds. He denies the use of magic, attributing his success solely to the swords of the House of Saxe. Sir Helmet is delighted that Dale has mastered the art of cavalry command. Dale thanks his mentor, because it was Sir Helmet who taught him tactics and strategy. Helmet proudly declares that at this rate, the boy will soon begin waging full-scale wars. Dale smiles with anticipation, as he is always looking forward to the next stage and new challenges. The blonde girl charges forward with a battle cry, her sword glowing with energy. Their blades cross in a furious training duel. The girl concentrates, filling her sword with a green glowing aura. She lunges forward, sending the tip of her blade straight towards Dale's neck. Dale easily parries her attack hand and prepares to strike back. He disarms his opponent and puts his sword to her throat, knocking her to the ground. It turns out that he trains with several opponents at the same time, easily dodging their attacks. After finishing the sparring, he tells the girl that she has become much better. She admits that she can't compare to him, and Dale wonders if he's been teasing her too much. Dale notes her success, as she is a third circle mage and has reached the 20th floor of the tower. The girl complains that everyone around him addresses him too formally. He encourages Charlotte, assuring her that she too will become stronger. 10-year-old Charlotte is already considered exceptional by any standards. Charlotte demands that he stop treating her like a child, but Dale calmly replies that she is a child. Dale proudly declares that he is already an adult. Dale has a lesson with a mentor in a large mansion. The mentor announces the topic of the lesson, dedicated to the hammer and anvil tactics. The mentor explains that in battle, cavalry forces are used on the flanks. The task of the cavalry is to break through the enemy's flanks and encircle him. The mentor explains that this tactic relies heavily on cavalry. Dale realizes that the success of this tactic is only possible thanks to the black cavalry. Dale asks his coach how Charlotte's training is going. The mentor says that Charlotte's progress in fencing is truly remarkable. Charlotte has already grasped the basics of fencing and will soon master the aura of the Saxe house. However, Dale is concerned and asks about the compatibility of Charlotte's style with their sword style. The audience is told that knights transform mana into aura through their cultivation methods, while magicians build magical towers, mastering the structure, and the knights of the order develop their sword techniques, passing them on. The black cavalry of the north resembles war chariots. Northern knights specialize in crushing the battlefield with brute force. The problem is that Charlotte's technique is based on speed and smoothness. She wields a fast, free-flying sword and can reach the low rank of swordmaster, but she will never become the first sword. This is the pinnacle of the seven swords, a position once held by her father. Dale calls this style the Sword of Blossom, and the mentor regrets that this art is lost. Dale wonders if this art could truly disappear from this world forever. After this, Dale's days became even more ruthless, and his reputation continued to grow. It's time to show off the results of Dale's progress. The neighboring territory, ruled by Baron Parker, declared a territorial war. Dale finds it absurd that a low-ranking noble would pick a fight with a high-ranking noble. The messenger explains the consequences of refusing the Baron's summons. Count Brandenburg is reported to have sided with the Baron to support him. The letter proposes sending a knightly order in exchange for a share of the mine's profits. Dale realizes that this is revenge for the humiliation and decides to respond in kind. From the very day of his humiliation, the Count thought only about how to repay the Dark Duke. He found it difficult to start a war, so he decided to settle the matter in the border region. Dale offers to command the battle personally, but his father refuses. The Duke says it's too early for Dale to take this on. He asks his son to refrain from making rash statements, because war with people is different from hunting monsters. The Duke reassures Baron Greenbelt by promising to personally guard his mine. Dale is upset that his father is not listening to him, but the knight asks him to ignore it. The knight consoles Dale, saying that the Duke probably has his reasons. The knight tells Dale that he has prepared something for him. He suggests playing a strategy game similar to chess. Dale remembers that this game is called War, which surprises the knight. The knight explains that the rules are complex, but that mastering them will greatly benefit Dale. He offers to talk about the battlefield if Dale plays with him. Dale suddenly grabs the board and runs away, screaming that this is it. He asks if he will be allowed to participate in the war if he wins. Dale explains to his father that war is a contest of wits, not just strength. The boy asks to be judged on one match, and the knight tries to intervene. The Duke stops the knight and tells him to leave the boy. The father agrees, but sets the condition that if Dale loses, he will refuse to fight. The knight looks at the board in shock, and Dale calmly declares his victory. The Duke and the knight discuss how Dale used his numbers and terrain to his advantage. The knight cannot believe that the boy won 2 out of 3 matches against the Duke himself. Dale asks his father if he will keep his promise, and he agrees. When his father asked, Dale replied that he had found a collection of rules in the library several years ago. He thinks to himself that it was a lie, but without it, he would have seemed too strange. The Duke hands over command of the knights in the upcoming battle to his son. The father warns that the honor of the house is at stake and defeat is unacceptable. He asks one last time if Dale can really handle the battle alone. Dale confidently asks his father to trust him and promises to prove his worth. The Duke approves of his attitude and orders him to return victorious. At Brandenburg Fortress, someone yells at Philip for drinking all day. Count Brandenburg is furious at rumors that a young scion of the House of Saxe will lead the knights. He yells at his son Philip, who is nonchalantly holding a bottle of wine. Philip, the eldest son of the Count, asks his father not to worry about the 10-year-old brat. He asks to be allowed to crush the arrogant offspring of the House of Saxe. The Count contemptuously repeats his son's words about the 10-year-old brat. He shouts that this boy is a monster that Philip won't be able to cope with even in 100 years. The Count pushes his son away, calling him a pathetic insect, inferior even to a child. He regretfully thinks that he should have taken care of Charlotte long ago. The Count entrusts Philip with command of the knights, and he happily agrees. The father clarifies that his task is simply to stand and look beautiful. Sir Milvus will be an actual command, with Philip serving as a figurehead. The Count orders Sir Milvus to take Philip away, who tries to object. The Count laments that he cannot go out onto the battlefield against the child himself. He suspects that this was part of Duke Sax's cunning plan. A few days later, the action moves to the territory of Baron Greenbelt. Young Master Dale of House Sax is welcomed with respect to his new territory. The Baron's men doubt Dale's abilities because he is just a child. Baron Greenbelt says that they feel more confident with the young master. In his thoughts, the Baron laments that only a child was sent to help him. The Baron invites the young gentleman to a banquet, but he resolutely refuses. Dale draws his sword and declares his intention to inspect the troops. With a sly smile, the young gentleman asks who is the strongest soldier. The red-haired knight steps forward, boasting of his strength and mocking the boy. Dale, thrusting his sword into the ground, calmly notes that they doubt his abilities. He says with a grin that their doubts are understandable since he is a 10-year-old who was put in charge of the squad. Dale states that he too has the right to doubt them and suggests settling the matter with a sword. He ridicules the so-called strongest knight, whose boasting has already confirmed his doubts. The knight accepts the young gentleman's challenge and prepares for the duel. The knight introduces himself as Harbak and vows to defend his knightly honor. Dale, sword over his shoulder, asks if the knight has heard of his blade. Harbak mentions the infamous special sword, and Dale is surprised by his confidence. Harbak suspects the boy has an ace up his sleeve and charges. A sudden force throws Harbak back at the very beginning of the fight. The knight's sword collides with an invisible barrier of dark energy around Dale. Harbak launches a series of attacks, but each one is repelled by a dark aura. The knight, in despair, realizes that he cannot even put aura into his strike. Dale stands calmly, surrounded by dark energy, and creates a magical shield. Harbak looks in horror at the dark magic that takes the form of claws. Dark tentacles of energy begin to whip and attack the knight from all sides. Harbak struggles to fight back, cursing the artifact that is preventing him from concentrating. Dale easily deflects another attack from Harbak with his magical shield. Dale calmly assesses his opponent and finds his skill unimpressive. Harbak is down and screaming in pain, and the Baron screams his name in panic. The Baron runs up to the wounded knight, not believing that he was defeated so easily. The Baron is furious and accuses Dale of incapacitating their best knight. Dale calmly addresses the Baron, asking if he doesn't realize the situation. He states that with such pathetic knights, they will only become a burden in the coming battle. Dale asks if this man really is the strongest warrior in their order. He proclaims that the House of Sax will always stand up for an ally without hesitation. Dale announces that for now, the Knights of House Sax will act as their sword. He offers the Baron and Harbak a choice as his knights line up behind him. The young gentleman stands before the line of knights, radiating confidence and strength. The scene changes, and we see a crying blonde woman being comforted by someone. The long-haired man says their child exceeds all expectations. He is confident that when their son grows up, he will reach unimaginable heights. The father believes that his son will lead the world, but Dale himself, in his room, considers it hopeless. He realizes that he has lived like a frog in a well, and is only now beginning to understand the scale of the world. Realizing that the enemy will attack because of rumors, Dale comes up with a plan. The next day, the sounds of grueling training can be heard near the castle. The knights exhaust themselves with training with a huge stone, and one of them can no longer continue. Dale, sitting on the throne, calls the knight a weakling and doubts his right to be called a Knight of the North. The knight complains about his injury, but Dale coldly replies that he did nothing and is already whining. He orders Sir Bale to train Baron Greenbelt's knights, starting with endurance. Dale then orders an ambassador to be sent to Baron Parker with a proposal for negotiations. He smirks, explaining that he just wants to see someone before the battle begins. A tent is erected on the border between the two baronies to conduct negotiations. Dale sits at the table thinking that they have a couple of weeks left at most. He analyzes the map, realizing that the enemy with low supplies will strike first. Baron Parker's forces cannot be underestimated. They pose a serious threat. Lord Philip and his companion enter the negotiating tent. Dale thinks with a smile that, as expected, the enemy sent exactly these two. He recognizes the pawn, Commander Philip, and behind him, Sir Milvas, the real commander. Philip greets Dale, who greets him with laughter. Philip asks with a grin if they really want to negotiate. Dale responds by asking why they accepted the request to negotiate in the first place. He declares that the puppet's opinion does not interest him and turns to the real commander. Dale speaks directly to Sir Milvus, the true sword, shocking Philip. With a sly smile, Dale asks if he's right. Sir Milvus tries to restrain an angry Lord Philip, who insults Dale. Milvus recalls that Count Brandenburg considers Philip a disgrace, and that this is a secret. Dale asks Philip what it's like to have your own father disrespect you. Sir Milvus declares the negotiations over and calls for Lord Philip to leave. Philip, clenching his fists in anger, agrees to return immediately. Dale notices that Milvus didn't even pretend to ask his lord's opinion. He mockingly compares Philip to a little dog and doubts his status as the firstborn. Philippa is infuriated by the comparison to a dog on a short leash. Milvus tries to calm him down again, but Philip orders him to remain silent. Dale leans back in his chair, wondering whose puppet Philip is. His tactics are to sow discord among the enemy rather than negotiate with them. Dale asks Sir Bale to step outside for a minute, and he obeys the order. Staying with the guests, he offers to talk face to face. It offers a conversation between two army leaders responsible for what is happening on the battlefield. Philip, in a rage, orders Sir Milvus to leave them alone. He angrily asks Milvus why he doesn't listen to his commander. Philip declares that he will deal with the brat himself, and Milvus understands that he has taken the bait. Dale thanks Lord Philip and reminds him that their meeting is purely for negotiations. Philip asks if Dale has a suggestion, and he says yes. Dale proposes that the Knights of St. Magdalene abandon the battle immediately. In exchange, House Saxe promises to supply their army with provisions for the return journey. Philip furiously asks if Dale thinks this is a real proposal. Dale apologizes for his insolence, but urges Philip to be prudent and deploy his troops. He threatens that otherwise their army will be destroyed, and Philip's reputation will be dragged through the mud. Philip laughs, accusing Dale of mocking him, but he only smiles regretfully. Dale calmly states that this was their last chance and asks if they weren't scared. He explains that after losing the battle, all the blame will not fall on Sir Milvus. The blame will be placed on the Count's incompetent and useless firstborn. Philip leaves, throwing in a parting remark that he who laughs last laughs best. Dale calmly accepts the challenge, replying that everything will be as Philip wishes. Negotiations failed, and preparations began in Greenbelt baronies soon after. Philip stands on the wall and asks for a report on the actions of the enemy army. He is informed that the House of Saxe has begun mobilization, and the Count reflects on Dale's composure. The Count admits that the boy is not simple and should not be underestimated despite his age. But while Dale is only 10 years old, they have a certain chance of winning. Philip decides to destroy him before he has time to spread his wings. He calls on his knights to teach the impudent boy courtesy. Dale is informed that the enemy's main forces are on the move, and he is pleased. He shouts to his warriors that their hour has come. Dale leads the knights into battle to show the enemy that they are not to be trifled with. Philip also gives the order, and his first detachment of cavalry rushes forward. Philip reflects that the key to victory is to stop the cavalry of the House of Saxe. To avoid losses, he should not be placed at the front, but only in the center of the formation. Baron Parker's forces are to reinforce the left flank and the Knights of Greenbelt. He himself will lead the elite troops in an attack on the Saxon cavalry from the flank. Philip shouts that they cannot miss this chance and leads the soldiers into the attack. One of his knights, shouting, "For the county!" rushes at the enemy, but his blow is easily blocked by one of the warriors of the Saxe house. The knights are relieved to know they are saved. It was young Master Dale who personally led the vanguard to help his people. He orders no one to retreat and to fight to the very end. With the cry for the House of Saxe, his cavalry rushes forward. Philip is shocked to realize that Dale had intended to test his strength against him from the very beginning. However, Philip only smirks, because this is exactly what he wanted. His knights rush into battle shouting, "For the Count of Brandenburg" and "For the Order of St. Magdalene." The warriors of Dale shout that they will not let the enemy reach their lord and rush to attack. The troops of House Saxe rush forward with a roar, their weapons shining. Philip is confident that they will cope quickly, but his soldiers are already being pushed back. He leads the cavalry behind him, intending to knock down Dale and end the battle. Philip encourages his warriors, calling them elite and urging them to rush into battle. His cavalry immediately crashes into the enemy ranks, sweeping away everything in its path. Enemy soldiers fall under the powerful blows of his elite knights. Philip confidently cuts through the enemy line, his face distorted by a grin. The enemy commander notices that his troops have scattered too easily and orders a retreat. Philip is surprised by the easy victory, but he is tormented by a vague feeling of unease. A messenger flies up to him with an alarming message from the left flank. The messenger reports that Baron Parker's troops on the left flank have been completely routed. It turns out that the ordinary soldiers of Greenbelt were suddenly able to use aura. The left flank, under the command of Baron Parker, urgently requests reinforcements. Another commander receives reports that the Aura Knights of House Saxe have broken through their defenses. Philip understands that if he loses, all the blame will be placed on him, and vows not to let Dale win. A messenger from Sir Milvas conveys advice to unite forces and strengthen the defense. Philip cuts the messenger off in a rage, refusing to listen to anyone's advice. He orders all the cavalry to follow him to attack the right flank. He decides to personally deal with Dale while the enemy is busy on the left flank. Suddenly, he is informed that Lord Dale and his detachment are already close. Philip is angry with the Baron, who was unable to hold the left flank and let the enemy through. Strategically, strengthening the enemy's left flank now will only slow down the attack. Philip, blinded by the desire to kill the commander, ignored all requests for help. Because of his decision, the left flank will soon fall and the entire army will be trapped. The warriors urge the captain to retreat, but he stubbornly refuses. At this moment, Dale appears and declares that the battle is not over yet. Philip is furious at Dale's self-confidence and vows to wipe the smile off his face. He raises his sword and orders the first cavalry unit to charge. His knights are full of determination and are just waiting for the order to rush into battle. Before the decisive attack, warriors pray to the goddesses for protection and blessings. Philip calls for the swords to be drawn and leads the cavalry in a final charge. Dale watches their attack with a smirk, realizing that the enemy has fallen into his trap. Dale knows that in the heat of battle, a commander's field of vision becomes increasingly restricted. He understands that the anxiety and hardships of battle dull the enemy's ability to think clearly. Philip sees a magical glow in the sky with horror and cannot believe his eyes. Dale mockingly asks if this is the first time he has seen magic and prepares the ice bullet spell. An ice arrow easily pierces the shield of one of Philip's knights. Philip is shocked by the accuracy of the shot, made at full gallop. He realizes that such a shot requires not only magic, but also incredible archery skills. But Dale is already preparing the next, more powerful spell. He says the words, "ice wall," and a barrier of ice rises from the ground. A huge ice wall blocks the path of the attacking cavalry. Dale, having stopped the enemy, shouts a command to his warriors. Dale gives the order and his knights charge into battle at full gallop. The knights in black armor vow to protect their young master at any cost. In the thick of the battle, one of the knights in black falls, struck down by an enemy blade. The enemy commander realizes that their real goal was to divide his forces. He sees one of his lords being beheaded and realizes he has made a mistake. Because of Philip's mistake, his army shifted its forces to the right flank, destroying the entire formation. In a rage, the commander rushes forward on his horse, realizing that he has only one way out. He puts all his power into the sword, which begins to glow with a golden aura. Breaking through the ice barrier, he rushes straight towards Dale. The commander raises the shining sword above his head, confident of his victory over Dale. The next moment, the commander is already on his knees, and Dale mockingly speaks of his strength. Dale explains that the Order's combat doctrines have become their greatest weakness. He remembers how in a past life he was their prisoner and learned all their customs. Dale confidently declares that he knows them like the back of his hand and receives good news. The commander learns of Baron Parker's capture and blames it all on Philip's stupidity. The commander asks if Dale planned this trap from the very beginning. Dale replies with a smile that anything can happen on the battlefield. He adds that in the chaos of battle, the losers have only their own stupidity to blame. He offers the captives to buy their lives for gold, following imperial traditions. One of the knights angrily shouts that he would rather die than beg for mercy. Dale calmly says, "So die." And the daring knight is immediately pierced with a blade. The remaining prisoners scream in horror as they see their comrade die. The commander clenches his teeth and firmly declares that he is not afraid of death. The commander thinks that his death will show the others how dangerous their enemy is. He orders his men to kneel, to beg for mercy. Dale looks at them and says that if they are ready to pray, then there is no point in delaying. With a creepy smile, he announces that none of them will survive. He then gives his warriors a merciless order to kill all the prisoners. Even his own soldiers freeze, for such an order violates imperial customs. However, the voice of their master was adamant, and the warriors prepared to carry out the order. For the Knights of Saxe, there was only an order, and they carried it out without hesitation. The commander understands that only one person is to blame for this tragedy: Unwilling to give up, he lunges at Dale with his sword in a last, desperate attack. But his attack is immediately interrupted by a counterattack. Dale's warriors pin the fallen commander to the ground with spears. Dale leans towards him and asks if he remembers his death. He whispers with a smile that he remembers perfectly the knight's face on the night of his death. In Dale's memories, Sir Milvus watched in cold blood as he was killed. Dale looks into the dying man's eyes and repeats his question. Sir Milvus is horrified to realize who is in front of him and whispers that this is impossible. Dale releases dark energy that attacks his opponent. With a satisfied smile, he says that he finally feels satisfied. Philip comes to his senses and realizes with horror that the battle is already lost. He recalls how the right flank of the cavalry was routed and Sir Milvus and his knights were killed. The left flank also fell, and the main forces of the enemy surrounded his cavalry. Philip is haunted by the image of Dale with his creepy grin. His knights desperately beg him to make some decision. Philip suddenly declares that they can't lose so easily. He orders everyone to stand to the death, for their order will never fall to its knees. One of the knights tries to object, but Philip angrily cuts him off. Philip calls on everyone to rush into the final battle, not listening to his subordinates. He screams in panic for protection while his knights die. He thinks in horror that he would rather die in bed than on the battlefield. The battle is over, and one of the warriors praises Dale for the perfectly executed plan. Dale calmly counters that those are big words for someone who's just trying to escape. Philip justifies himself by saying that as a commander, he is obliged to survive at any cost. Dale says that since the battle is over, Philip has no more reason to live. In a last desperate attempt to save himself, Philip accepts a challenge to a duel. Dale's subordinate thinks this is absurd, but the boy confidently says that everything is fine. Dale accepts the challenge and Philip smirks smugly, anticipating victory. Philip rushes into the attack with a cry, confident that he has caught the boy. But Dale easily stops his sword with one hand using dark magic. Disarmed, Philip falls to his knees and begs for mercy in horror. Dale notes that his enemy remained pathetic until the very end. Dale returns home victorious, where he is greeted by a cheering crowd. People glorify him for the destruction of the knightly order of St. Magdalene. But not everyone in the crowd is happy, because a sea of blood was spilled on the battlefield. The priest, with a sly smile, wonders if God wanted all these people to die. Cardinal Nicholas reflects that the child's blade is currently aimed at the enemy, but that could change. A little girl named Liz runs happily towards him. Dale hugs his sister and asks if she missed him, and she happily confirms. Sir Helmut congratulates the young gentleman on his victory in his first battle. Dale kneels before the ruler and officially reports the defeated enemy. The ruler praises him for the work he has done and the victory he has brought. She smiles and suggests that he must be very tired after the battle. Dale thanks his mother for her concern and permission to go and rest. He hadn't been home for months, and only now did he really feel it. Meanwhile, a certain gentleman asks two wounded men where Philip is. The wounded man reports that their entire knightly order was destroyed. The survivors report that the House of Saxe has captured Philip and is demanding a huge ransom. The Count, in a rage, shouts at his subordinate for running away to save his own skin. The frightened youth begs for mercy, admitting that he has no excuse. The Count orders the deserters to be thrown into the dungeon, where torture awaits them. Word gradually spread about the battle, which became a turning point. Dale, who showed no mercy to his enemies, was proclaimed the Dark Lord. On his 11th birthday, the boy receives news of a gift. His father announces that he will appoint him a Viscount at the upcoming ceremony. The title of Viscount gives him the powers of an official representative of the Lord. The boy thanks his father, but says he wants to add something. He mentions rumors of his cruelty in battle and the killing of all prisoners. He tells his father that the church will not like the news of the knights who died at his hands. With a smile, he asks to be sent on a pilgrimage to atone for his sins. His father doesn't understand him, because fear is a huge advantage. The boy confidently replies that the church's favor is worth it. The father guesses that his son is up to something again, and he confirms it. He's going to make them an offer they can't refuse. In addition, this will allow him to gain access to forbidden grimoires. A few days ago, the boy was tormented in bed by nightmares. He dreamed of a skeleton with a dagger, who asked him if he remembered his death. The voice in his head says that they remember their death. The boy wakes up in horror, clutching his heart and calling it a nightmare. This place is called the Abyss of Reason, and it is the darkest place he has ever seen. For a magician, the practice of control over one's inner world is everything. But he is tormented by loneliness and nightmares emanating from this very world. He understands that he is still too inept and needs more strength. Just as a sword faithfully serves a knight, So grimoires serve magicians. They are riding in a carriage on the border of the territories of Baron Grivelt and Baron Parker. For the defeated Baron Parker, there was only one option left. That option was robbery, and the riders prepared to attack the cart. The fired arrows hit the ground around the cart, but missed their target. One of the robbers angrily asks how they dared to enter without permission. The robber declares that it is natural to pay a fee to enter a nobleman's lands. The companion agrees and says that he has prepared a certain amount for payment. The leader of the bandits smiles, saying that he loves understanding people. Seeing the bag of gold, the robbers are surprised by the large sum. The robbers let the cart pass, and their leader wishes them to come again. Soon the road is blocked by a new group led by Baron Parker himself. They shout how travelers dare to set foot on their territory without paying a fee. The companion says they have already paid and asks about the legality of the double duty. Two of the Baron's men laugh and call his words complete nonsense. The leader of the bandits shouts that he sees travelers for the first time, and his accomplice boasts of his knowledge of the laws of the Empire. The mustachioed robber demands that everything be given up if life is dear, calling this an unspoken rule. The boy in the cloak smiles slyly and says that he remembers everything differently, which surprises the mustachioed robber. The robber, in horror, recognizes the boy and his companion, exclaiming, "Is this really young Master Dale?" The mustachioed bandit tries to calm his men, urging them not to panic, since there are only two opponents. He convinces his men of victory and orders the archers, who have taken up a position on the hill, to take aim. Dale's companion calmly asks what the order will be, to which the boy replies that it's time to finish. Dale gives the order to kill everyone, and the leader of the bandits in response orders the archers to shoot. The archers release a cloud of arrows that fly straight at Dale, but he remains completely unfazed. The bespectacled companion stands in front of the boy and with one swing of his huge sword deflects all the arrows. Shrouded in a dark aura, the companion says he understands the order and calls Dale Lord. He leaps towards the archers, swinging his sword, and one of the bandits looks at him in horror. With one blow, he cuts off the archer's hand, who screams in unbearable pain. Dale's companion continues to attack in a vortex of dark energy, easily dispatching the remaining bandits. The leader of the bandits watches the carnage in horror, muttering that this cannot be and begging for mercy. He falls on his knees before the boy, begs him to forgive him, and vows to be faithful for the rest of his life. Dale looks at him with a sly grin, listening to the goddess's pleas for mercy. The narrator reports that Dale encountered many such bandits during his journey. The companion informs the young gentleman that they have finally arrived at their destination. Before them opens a view of a majestic city, which the satellite calls the Papal State of Justine. Dale reflects that although he pretends to be a pilgrim, he is really here as a judge. Dale and his companion kneel before a priest seated on a throne in a vast cathedral. The priest, with a kind smile, introduces himself as Cardinal Nicholas Macchia. Dale recalls that the cardinal is a white mage of the Sixth Circle and stands at the top of the church hierarchy. The cardinal says he has heard rumors of a battle in which a sea of blood was spilled. He laments the fact that the knights became victims and calls this event a turning point. Dale says that more people died because of his mistake, and he wants to make amends. He theatrically declares that he hid his power and status in order to personally make the pilgrimage. The cardinal hopes that Dale shares his beliefs and recalls that he is the heir of the House of Saxe. The cardinal wonders whether the horrors of the battle could have caused the 11-year-old boy to feel guilty. The cardinal rejoices at how well everything is working out and says that the goddess is merciful to everyone. Dale asks if there is any sin in the world that cannot be atoned for, and the cardinal replies that there is. The cardinal begins to laugh nervously, saying that this joke has gone too far. Dale reminds him of the times when the theocratic state was annexed by the empire. He says the cardinal was among those who urged the archbishop to surrender, but he was adamant. Ultimately, the archbishop was betrayed and killed as a result of a conspiracy between the cardinals and the empire. Dale furiously asks if the goddess has forgiven the cardinal for the sin of selling his country. The cardinal is enveloped in a golden aura, and Dale screams at him for daring to speak of redemption. Dale accuses the cardinal of heresy and ridicules his belief in the goddess's favor. He shouts, "Does the cardinal really think that the world will remain indifferent to the murder of the duke's representative? The duke will not dig into the church's dirty laundry, so we want payment for our silence." Dale stands before the cardinal, who sits on a throne surrounded by golden light. Grinning, he says that he heard about a secret archive with forbidden books in the dungeon. He demands full access to heretical writings, mentioning the most terrifying grimoire. This grimoire turns out to be the Book of the Black Goat, kept in the dark library. Dale goes down the stairs with a lantern, because only one person is allowed into the restricted section. The cardinal tells his people that the church is no longer responsible for what is happening. He sternly warns Dale that he can only take one grimoire and not touch anything else. The cardinal demands an oath of eternal silence, and Dale swears by the Duke of Saxe. This sacred oath is sealed with a handshake. Their pact is sealed with their own hearts, and Dale is enveloped in magical chains. They entered into a magical contract at the Bale Tower that binds their oath. If he broke the contract, his heart would break. But it wasn't such a big secret. He approaches huge doors, which he calls the Gates of Hell. On the door, he reads the inscription, which reads, "Abandon hope, all ye who enter here." Dale pushes the heavy gate doors open with force, revealing a passage. He enters a dark room, which is not called Hell for nothing. This is a huge underground library where forbidden and dangerous treasures are kept. Just as a knight needs a sword, so a magician needs his grimoire. And this is a natural desire. Suddenly, armed guards appear, and Dale wonders who they are. He notices their strangeness because the servants of darkness swear by the power of light, and they attack. The guardians surround him, but the dark energy is already beginning to escape his control. Dale gloats that no one is watching here, which means he doesn't have to pretend anymore. He uses the Shadow Bullet spell and destroys the guards with streams of dark magic. Standing over the fallen bodies, he relishes the opportunity to unleash his true power. He takes out a dagger, saying that it is now time to finish things. With a bloody dagger in his hand, he introduces himself as Dale of House Saxe. Drops of blood fall to the floor as he proclaims himself the Duke's true heir. He calls upon the Black Goat, urging him to appear and fulfill the contract they made. An invisible voice cries out in delight. How powerful the blood is. The grimoires come to life, sensing the blood of the magician, and they compete with each other to offer him a contract. One of them yells at the others to get out, claiming that this child will make a contract with him. Some entity senses hatred, murderous lust, and the stench of death emanating from Dale. Dale finds himself in a world of blood and corpses, wondering if he is inside a book. A hooded figure appears before him and offers him a contract, promising to kill all his enemies. A powerful scythe-wielding creature promises to stage a blood festival for anyone who stands in its way. It persistently repeats its promise to destroy every single enemy. Dale wonders if this is the world of the Book of Slaughter grimoire. The Book of Slaughter is described as a secret art of vicious blood magic for mass murder. However, Dale looks coldly at the creature and orders it to move away. The creature from the book screams in rage at how Dale dared to refuse him. Dale smirks confidently, seeing no reason not to get out of here alive. He releases a stream of dark energy, directing it towards the enemy. Dale explains that the book's miserable world has no effect on him, but his own world, on the contrary, is capable of changing reality. His world consumes others, because he is a monster thirsting for destruction. Dale boasts that his kill count surpasses anything he's ever seen. The enemy cries out in pain, unable to withstand the pressure of Dale's aura. The monster with bloodshot eyes is not going to give up so easily, but the next moment, an invisible force cuts him in half. The creature looks at its parts in shock, not believing what happened. The grimoire's world cracks and crumbles, and Dale notices someone else. A horned girl appears behind him and asks why he summoned her. She admits that she is very glad to meet him, because she was terribly lonely. With a creepy smile, the girl asks if he will play with her. This is the avatar of the Book of the Black Goat, created at the cost of the life of the Duke's daughter. Dale realizes that it is not the girl herself who stands before him, but the spirit of the grimoire. He offers the Black Goat's daughter to sign a contract with him. They are transported to a snowy world, which delights the girl. Turning around, she says with a smile that she really likes Dale. Suddenly, the priests appear, shocked by what they see. Dale didn't expect the cardinal to actually get his hands on the book. He calmly greets Cardinal Nicholas, who has arrived from afar. Dale smirks and suggests that the oath alone wasn't enough. He announces that they have come into the world of darkness to get rid of him. The cardinal nervously justifies himself, saying that he was simply worried about Dale. A horned girl with a predatory look asks if she can eat them. Dale allows it, warning that it's not his fault if she gets a stomachache. The frightened cardinal begins to offer a prayer for salvation. He calls upon the spirit of the holy martyr, begging for mercy. His knights kneel, asking for the goddess's blessing. The Lord of Light answers prayers, and warriors gain angelic wings. The cardinal orders the angels to rid them of the devil's servant. Dale just smirks, knowing that the battle will not be easy. 3 winged warriors dive down on him from the sky. Dale easily dodges their coordinated attack. He prepares to counterattack, and dark magic thickens at his feet. With the shadow bullet spell, he fires projectiles of darkness at the angels. The angels dodge, and Dale praises them for being as agile as expected. The cardinal mocks that a third circle mage will not master the book's power. The cardinal calls on everyone to praise the angel who has appeared and is hovering above them. The horned girl screams in rage at them to shut up. She releases streams of dark energy attacking angels. Angel notices that the dark tentacles did not harm them. The angel prepares to strike, but the girl only smiles ominously. Suddenly, tentacles of darkness attack and push back the angels. The cardinal runs up to the fallen angels, concerned about their condition. The angels, struck by darkness, writhe in agony and begin to praise him. The cardinal looks at what is happening in horror, not understanding what has happened. One of the angels, distorted by darkness, says that he has not smelled this smell for a long time. The girl smiles maliciously, anticipating the pleasure of their suffering. The cardinal is horrified to realize that the boy who summoned her cannot be ordinary. He recalls that even the most flattering titles did not describe the boy's entire essence. An image of a boy who is a true spawn of the devil comes to his mind. The boy reminds the cardinal of their agreement that neither party would bear any liability. The frightened cardinal, kneeling, begs for mercy and to be allowed to live. The boy asks with a smile what the cardinal can offer him in return. The cardinal, in desperation, offers money, a church position, and all his influence. The boy finds the offer tempting, and the cardinal asks what exactly. With a wide smile, the boy replies that he wants to take everything the cardinal has. He says they will have to change the contract to a vow of absolute obedience. At that moment, a cardinal named Nicola had no other choice. The horned girl tells the boy that he is a lot of fun to play with. She likes his world, so she will wait for the next command. With a creepy smile, she asks if he is afraid of her. The boy reflects that she cannot be summoned carelessly because of the enormous danger. He can't control her power yet and must use it as a trump card. She asks hopefully if he will invite her to play again. He promises that they will meet again, and the girl exclaims joyfully. The boy smiles and confirms his promise to play together again. Her voice echoes that she looks forward to their next meeting. The boy is left alone, and the narrative concludes with a hellish mess. The eldest son of the House of Saxe received repentance for his sins from the cardinal. A sacred ceremony was held as a reconciliation between the houses. The boy smiles, because now no one will dare to stand in his way. Several months later, a blonde woman with a huge sword stands in the snow. A man in armor approaches a young lady with a proposal to begin. The girl prepares for battle, her blade enveloped in a dark purple aura. She concentrates, channeling powerful energy into her massive sword. The man admiringly praises her for her perfect mastery of the aura blade. Dale of House Saxe asks Charlotte to swear an oath of allegiance. Kneeling, the girl with the large sword solemnly swears. He asks if she swears to protect the weak and punish evil. Having received the oath, he names her Lady Charlotte, his knight. Dale hopes she doesn't change her mind, and Charlotte confirms her decision. She admits that she likes the sword of the House of Saxe because he made it what it is. In the past, she herself preferred a huge two-handed sword to a light rapier. Dale reflects that he underestimated her talent, as it was not easy to retrain. Dale informs Charlotte of a report about a huge detachment of orcs. He says that his father is raising troops and he will also join the campaign. Dale invites Charlotte to join him as a knight. She agrees with a smile and promises to become the sword that protects her lord. Dale's father reports a large-scale orcish advance from the south. One of those present suggests that this is another barbaric attack. The barbaric attacks began when the demonic races fled south. An order was given to summon the northern lords and all knightly orders. Dale's father concludes that the coming battle will be the largest yet. He turns to his son and says that the time has come to teach him necromancy. That same day, training began in the Dark Duke's underground workshop. Father begins the lesson by asking about the difference between a death knight and a risen soldier. Dale assumes the difference is in fighting power, but his father says that's not entirely true. Dale guesses that the key difference is the ability to use the blade's aura. The father shows him the body of a knight who recently died in battle. He was an aura knight who had sworn to serve House Saxe even in death. The Duke begins the ritual, channeling dark energy into the body of the fallen warrior. He explains that the higher the level of the Aura Knight was in life, the stronger the Death Knight he resurrects becomes. Father tells us to remember that these are proud knights both in life and after death. Dale's father calls him to follow him, promising to show him something important. As they descend further, Dale is surprised at how deep they are underground. Dale's father asks if he knows about the founder of their house, Frederick. Dale remembers that the immortal Duke's grimoire is in his heart. Dale replies that he knows about him from books, and his father calls his ancestor a monster. His father takes him to the portal to show him the results of his ancestor's research. They pass through a barrier accessible only to the descendants of the Sachs family. Beyond the portal, Dale sees a huge army of knights in dark armor. Father reveals the secret discovered by the Duke: controlling the dead without spending mana. The heads of House Sachs have been secretly building an army of the dead, the Order of Death, for centuries. In the memoirs, his father praises little Dale for his determination and will. Dale realizes why their home has become isolated from the world, keeping its dark secret. My first reaction was disgust at this hypocrisy. He calls this power their darkness, but at the same time, their shield. Young Dale says he was prepared for this from the start. Dale of House Sachs willingly embraces this sin, unafraid of the wickedness of power. Dale channels dark energy towards the knight, beginning the ritual. The knight is transformed by magic, his eyes darkening. The resurrected Death Knights begin to move under his control. The teacher is amazed by the incredible concentration of mana of his student. However, Dale admits that he cannot yet control the knight without a constant supply of mana. The teacher says that he originally planned to only teach him the basics of necromancy for combat. He advises Dale to focus on training for the upcoming battle. With a snap of his fingers, the mentor summons dark creatures for training. Evil goblins with glowing red eyes emerge from the darkness. One of the monsters rushes to attack the motionless knight. The Death Knight easily repels the attack and destroys the creatures. The teacher is amazed, as controlling the Death Knights requires a completely different level of skill. Necromancers usually control weak, undead creatures, but Dale was able to subjugate an elite warrior. The memories are replaced by a scene of Dale training with an elf in a snowy forest. The elf remembers how Dale pretended to be an innocent child, saying that he liked her. She understands that behind his words there was coldness, darkness, and a desperate thirst for recognition. Their water magic training creates a powerful shockwave. The teacher praises him for his success in water control, and he talks about his promise to his father. She notices the worry on his face and asks if something is wrong. He asks if she will love him when she sees his ugly side. Dale fears he will disappoint her when he embraces his family's dark legacy. In response, the elf gently takes his face in her hands. She reminds him that elves live a long time, and she will see him as an adult. She thinks to herself why she cares so much about the fate of this child. Word of Dale's victories spread far and wide, causing both admiration and gossip. They call him the God of Carnage. But she doesn't want him to follow the path of a killer. She promises to stay by his side until he decides on his desires. She adds that she will be there not as a teacher, but as an ordinary woman. The elf smiles cheerfully and suggests returning to the lesson. Stunned by her words, Dale suddenly hugs her. He sincerely says that he likes her very much, calling her Sepia. She hugs him back, feeling the warmth that drives away her loneliness. All the lords of the north gather in the duchy to repel the barbarian raid. One of the lords, Wilhelm Gazelle, introduces himself to the assembled group. He greets the Grand Duke and reports on the number of his troops. By order of Duke Saxon, all the lords gathered in one place. Among the aristocrats full of ambition, Lord Gazelle introduces his son Bat. Dale listens with a cold expression as fathers brag about their children seeking favor. Even in the lead-up to battle, the aristocrats continue to engage in small talk, strengthening their factions. Bat, Lord Gazelle's son, approaches young Master Dale to pay his respects. With her eyes shining, Beth tells Dale that she longs to share his valor on the battlefield. The young ladies enthusiastically surround Dale, saying that he is more gallant than they say. Dale smiles sweetly at the lady, but inside he is tired of this excessive attention and politics. An unfamiliar knight in black armor approaches Dale and the ladies surrounding him. The stranger says that he has heard about Dale's martial prowess and wants to see it for himself. The elderly lord angrily scolds the knight Yonez for his insolence in front of the young lord. Dale calmly asks the knight if he is Sir Jones, Baron Kenneth's second son. Dale looks at Yonez thoughtfully, echoing his desire to see his skill. He asks Jones directly if he wants to test his abilities, and he remains silent. Yonez kneels, calling Dale the Empire's greatest genius and remembering his victories. Yonez assures that he has no doubt in his abilities, because a military genius stands before him. Yonez challenges him to fight in order to learn something. While the Lord furiously orders Yonez to leave, Dale only smiles mysteriously. Dale recalls hearing about Yonez commanding a squad of 100 mercenaries. Dale reflects with interest on how Yonez became a knight-errant. Dale realizes that for a second son without an inheritance, this is a risky way to prove himself. Dale decides that such a person could be useful and accepts the challenge with a smile. The duel is organized on the spot, as it is an excellent opportunity to demonstrate strength before the war. The Dark Duke sees no reason to interfere, and Yonez prepares for battle, drawing his sword. Dale warns Yonez that his own sword is no ordinary weapon. Dale generously allows Yonez to use his aura, much to his surprise. With a confident smile, Dale challenges Yonez to fight at full strength. The duel begins, and Yonez, surrounded by a purple aura, rushes forward. Yonez is still a bit of a handyman with his aura, but his control over it is already impressive. In response, Dale summons his dark aura, and from it, a black sword is formed. Yonez looks at the young master's famous black sword with awe. Jones jumps and delivers a powerful punch from above, putting all his strength into it. Dale effortlessly blocks Yonez's powerful blow with his black sword. The blades clash with a clang, but Dale holds his ground confidently. Yonez understands that, unlike him, Dale was born with all the ingredients to win. The fighters disperse, and Yonez vows to prove he is capable of more. He will prove that even someone who has nothing can defeat someone born with talent. Yonez sees an opening, but Dale also notices that his opponent has opened up. Yonez swings wide and powerfully, hoping to break Dale's defense. Dale deftly dodges the blow and counterattacks from below. A powerful blow sends Yonez flying, and he falls to the floor, defeated. Dale stands confidently surrounded by the shadow swords he summoned. He rushes into attack, surrounded by streams of dark energy. He considers his opponent a worthy backdrop for demonstrating his skills. Yonez swings his sword in rage, screaming that he has been underestimated. Dale easily parries a powerful blow, crossing blades with his opponent. Observers note that the eldest son of the House of Saxe has a different level of resilience. The woman is amazed that an 11-year-old boy can be so strong. After throwing Dale aside, Yonez offers him the chance to dodge the next attack. Dale easily dodges the attack using shadow magic. Yonez realizes that Dale is just playing with him and doesn't take him seriously. With a desperate cry, Yonez rushes forward again, but Dale dodges the blow. Yonez mentally urges himself on, not wanting to acknowledge the enemy's obvious superiority. He recalls that the young master is considered the greatest talent of the Empire. Realizing that he cannot defeat Dale, Yonez clutches his sword in despair. A defeated Yonez drops to one knee and admits defeat. Dale ponders how he managed to contain the full force of the experienced mercenary. He feels like the shadow sword has become an extension of his body, like another limb. After thanking Yonez for the fight, Dale decides that he must set an example for him. Dale points his finger at the enemy, forming the shadow bullet spell. Yonez cries out in pain as an invisible projectile hits him. Standing over his fallen enemy, Dale asks if there are any others willing to fight. He speaks loudly to the audience, looking for those who doubt his title. The remaining knights bend their knees and swear allegiance to the young master. Dale remembers the words of his father as he sits on the throne. Fear guarantees loyalty. And now he sees confirmation of this. Later, Yonez drinks alone, reflecting on the cruelty of this world. He complains to his friend that he feels insignificant compared to Dale. Yonez thinks bitterly that status cannot be changed by effort alone. In his mind, the boy appears as an insurmountable wall. The very thought of it makes him sick, and he decides to get drunk. Around the fire, he ridicules the noble ladies who fawned over the boy. Yonez calls their behavior pathetic and laughs at the aristocrats. His drinking buddies agree that without titles, everyone is equal on the battlefield. He gleefully assumes that as a man, this brat is a complete zero. Suddenly, Dale appears behind him and asks with a grin if this is true. The mercenaries jump up, and Yonez, shocked, asks how long he has been standing there. Dale smiles and offers to refill their drinks from his bottle. He sits down by the fire and notices that the world is very unfair. While pouring Yonezu, he says that people don't decide anything in this world. Dale asks if any of them chose their talents or their surroundings. Dale consoles Yonez by saying that in this world, there is no destiny that can be completely determined by oneself. Yonez bitterly agrees, thinking that no matter how much he fights, he has no chance. Dale addresses him as Sir Jones, second son of House Kenneth, and says he likes him. With a sly smile, Dale bids Yonez and his squad raise their swords for House Sax under his command. Yonez asks if Dale wants his service, and he confirms, promising to prepare for battle. Yonez is shocked because he is offered training from the Knights of the Night Raven Order themselves. He doesn't understand why the man who showed him the injustice of the world gives him such a chance. Dale calmly and directly replies that he just needs loyal people. Jones was in the right place at the right time, and he understands that this is how the world works. He thinks the world is unfair. But with Dale, even injustice fades into the background. Sometime later, a majestic building is shown under the bright sun. In the council chamber of the Duke of Sax's castle, the head of the house demands a report on the current situation. Along the mountain pass, the knights are holding their ground in a fierce battle, holding back the enemy's onslaught. A detachment of rangers, the Winter Guard garrison, began retreating from the 9th Mountain Fortress. The Duke hears that the retreating troops have burned their supplies and notes with satisfaction that everything is going according to plan. The plan is to delay the defense to wear down the enemy as they advance along the river. The enemy then needs to be encircled and destroyed. So it's time to deploy the army. The Duke orders that the lords be informed that they must be fully prepared by March. When everyone leaves, the Duke turns to Dale, wanting to speak with him alone. Father gives Dale full command of a strike force of Night Raven Knights. Once the full-scale conflict begins, Dale will be in single-handed command of the strike force. Dale is surprised because the Dove Tower does not interfere in worldly conflicts, but his father says that she is already an advisor. Besides, the fight against the barbarians can hardly be called a normal conflict. But Dale is still worried. The father reminds that Sepia did not perform at her best in the last fight and expects success from his son. Dale replies that he understands everything, but he has one more small request for his father. He asks to enlist one outstanding swordsman under his command. Meanwhile, the blonde-haired knight girl puts on her heavy helmet. Dale comes up behind her and smirks at how formidable she looks in her armor. He laughs cheerfully, because he is the squire of a world-famous commander. He adds that now she really does look like a formidable knight, and not like a little girl. Dale becomes serious and offers to negotiate something important with her. His condition is simple. He asks her not to die on the battlefield. She starts to say that risking one's life is a knight's duty, but he interrupts her. Dale corrects her, saying that a knight's duty is to never betray his lord's trust. He looks into her eyes and tells her that he wants her not to die. At least, not on this battlefield. After some time, the main forces of the House of Sax, led by the Duke, set out on a campaign to the south. At the same time, Dale leads a strike force of Night Raven Knights to the Upper Sax River. From that moment on, Sepia was no longer just a teacher for Dale, but a comrade in arms. At dawn, Dale's strike force camp was spread out in the Upper Sax River Valley. Dale stands in the middle of the camp and calls out to Sepia, who is waiting for him in a hooded cloak. Sepia asks Dale why he is still awake at such a late hour. Dale cryptically replies that he is simply following his heart. Suddenly, an alarm sounds and Sepia turns around in surprise. Dale immediately gives the order for everyone to prepare for battle and march out. He realizes with annoyance that the enemies struck first, getting ahead of them. An excited Lord Bale runs up to him with a report on the situation. Bale reports thousands of orcs breaking through the river, indicating their haste. Dale orders Bale to take 4 battalions of cavalry and attack. He himself will lead 2 battalions behind enemy lines, and Bale accepts the order. Archers on the shore notice orcs who are already crossing the river. The commander orders to prevent the monsters from getting out onto land and to take aim. A volley of arrows rains down on the orcs running through the shallow water. Dale mentally asks Bale to hold on and buy him time. Meanwhile, in the forest, 2 mysterious cloaked figures watch the battle. Another squad of archers, hidden on the rocks, also opens fire on the enemy. Orcs on wolves quickly break through a hail of arrows. The enemy reaches the bridge, and the commander shouts to his men to push them back. Dale is confident that enemy support is cut off due to the long journey. He plans to go around them and strike from behind while Bale holds off the onslaught. Bale fights desperately, mentally convincing himself to hold on just a little longer. One of his warriors falls to the ground, struck down by the orc's blow. Dale and his cavalry rush onto the battlefield to help Bale. Bale enthusiastically shouts to his men to go forward and push the front line. He calls on the soldiers to attack with the cavalry, because the enemy is in a vice. A bloody battle begins, in which warriors mercilessly chop down the orcs. Sepia flies into the air and attacks enemies with the Shadow Bullet magic spell. A huge orc, club in hand, charges at Dale on horseback. Dale coolly dodges and stabs the monster with his sword. He confidently tells the knights not to panic and to entrust their enemies to him. Sepia warns that we need to act quickly before the orcs group up. The soldiers watch in surprise as the young gentleman and his horsemen turn around. Dale loudly gives a sudden order to the entire squad to retreat. He believes that the goal has been achieved, because a perfect victory is not always necessary. Now we need to lead the enemy away from the reinforcements in order to defeat him later. Orcs on wolves furiously rush in pursuit of the retreating detachment. The mysterious masked rider notices that his target has an ordinary horse. Sepia sees a new threat and desperately screams at Dale to watch out. Suddenly, a wall of ice spikes rises from the ground, blocking the way. The masked rider responds to the ice with fire magic, trying to break through the barrier. Fire meets ice, and a powerful explosion illuminates the night forest. A fiery explosion engulfs the enemy, who screams in pain under the impact of blue magic. The riders look at the remains in horror, and the young man understands what kind of magic this is. He realizes that they are facing pyromancers, the Inquisitors of the enemy tower. The Inquisitor is a battle mage of the Red Tower whose goal is to incinerate the enemies of the Empire. The young man understands that the magicians from the Red Tower have come specifically for his teacher. She orders her people not to stop and not to form groups. The young man realizes that they have found themselves in the worst possible situation. Trying to regroup and attack is tantamount to suicide due to the enemy's strength. But if they scatter, they will become easy prey for the orc riders. He has no choice but to use his secret dark power. The teacher says that she will do her duty and protect him. The young man is surprised by her words, but immediately takes command. He orders his knight to stay, reminding her that he is her lord. He explains to the teacher that they have no way to escape now. The teacher asks if he was going to run away, but he firmly answers no. He says he would never abandon her while enemies are approaching them. She thanks Dale and begins to concentrate ice magic in her hands. The teacher releases a powerful blast of icy energy at the advancing orcs. She casts a spell and a wave of sharp ice freezes everything around her. The orc riders and their wolves find themselves completely frozen in ice. The pyromancers are horrified to see that the ice spell is reaching even them. Dale explains that his teacher is an elder of the Blue Tower, a mage of the Sixth Circle. She asks the Red Tower mages why they are collaborating with the barbarians. One of the Inquisitors replies that they are merely targets for incineration. Pyromancers attack, calling for bowing before the power of Scarlet Flame. The teacher uses the Blue Dissonance spell to repel the attack. Dale shouts to his knights that the enemy attack has been successfully repelled. He gives the order to his cavalry to raise their spears and attack immediately. The young man empowers his warriors with a dark aura and leads them into battle. A powerful blast of dark energy pierces one of the orcs through and through. The Knights of Saxe engage in a fierce battle with the orcs. Meanwhile, Duke Saxe addresses the young magicians before a difficult battle. He tells them that only chaos, despair, and fear await them on the battlefield. The Duke urges them not to panic, because every death will make them stronger. He sends magicians into battle so that their sacrifices will change tomorrow. Having finished his speech, the Duke turns to his assistant named Eris. He orders her to send the children to the border because the time has come. Suddenly, a horseman arrives to the Duke with disturbing news. A girl named Charlotte reports that the young master is in danger. Charlotte and the other knights immediately rush to their lord's aid. A hooded figure unleashes a fire spell on a group of armored knights. The armored youth and the purple-haired woman are confident that the enemy has no chance. The young man creates a wall, believing that it is better to block the cavalry than to allow casualties. He decides to return the favor by creating countless ice spikes from the barrier shards. An attack called Ice Bolt Magnum rushes towards a lone hooded figure. Ice spikes crash against the fire defenses set up by a group of cloaked mages. It turns out that the main attacker was wearing fire armor, which saved him from the attack. A woman with purple hair steps forward, promising the mages that their flame will be extinguished here. The red armored rider cries out in surprise as a fiery explosion knocks him off his horse. Someone is shouting that the Inquisitors have gotten too close to Lady Sepia. Lady Sepia uses Shadow Bullet, hitting the enemy mage right in the back. The wounded mage falls to his knees, and the young man demands that he reveal their true purpose. The magician grins evilly and warns that soon this entire world will be engulfed in flames. He shows his disfigured face, saying that in a burning world, they will be reborn from the ashes. He activates self-destruction magic, as his armor is a device for incinerating the wearer. A young man named Dane shouts at his teacher to get away from the suicide bomber quickly. The magician with glowing eyes laughs maniacally and says that it is too late. He shouts, "Goodbye," and a powerful explosion of light illuminates everything around. Dane comes to in the middle of the fire and is relieved to see that Sepia is okay. He realizes that before the explosion, she protected him with ice armor, saving him from a fatal wound. Dane looks around in despair, seeing that the explosion has even affected the Knights of the Night Raven Order. The surviving enemy mage notices Dane and is glad that the boy is still alive. Dane looks at the enemy with fury and determination, shouting, "Die!" A dark shadow attack that cuts the enemy mage into pieces. Dane stands ready with his purple sword as another enemy explodes in the background. He looks up with a grim expression, realizing that they are now alone. Dane tells his last enemy that he has been patient and waiting for this moment, not forgetting about the torture. He swears that the enemy will not leave and promises to repay him for all the pain many times over. Sepia comes to her senses and screams in panic, looking around. Dane raises his dark, shrouded sword over his fallen and bloodied enemy. The memory shows a powerful explosion, throwing bodies in different directions. The silhouette of a rider on horseback is visible against the backdrop of the explosion, while Sepia watches from the ground. Sepia remembers with horror how the bodies of the knights who tried to protect her were burned to ashes. She thinks that the battlefield is the worst of pictures, while the enemies laugh at their victory. But the most hellish sight was the dark blade that pierced the back of one of the enemies. It was a clot of darkness flickering across the battlefield. The Phantom Transformation. The enemies are shocked that the self-destruct didn't work and decide to attack all at once. Dane, with his purple sword, repels the attack of another mage. With a swift swing of his dark blade, he cuts off the attacker's arm. The narrative speaks of the pain he carried within himself all this time while fighting his enemies. Dane strikes with his merciless blade, shrouded in dark energy. His attack causes a powerful explosion, which is observed by the hooded figure. The enemies are terrified, and Dane appears before them as the very embodiment of vengeance. He confidently declares to his opponents that they will not succeed. One of the Inquisitors points to his fallen comrades, acknowledging Dane's strength, but the other fanatically swears that they do not fear death in the name of the Black Tower. Ready to die, he rushes into the attack, not intending to spare even himself. He rises into the air, shouting a slogan in praise of the Empire before detonating himself. There is a blinding flash, and the comrade screams Dane's name in fear. Dane is surprised to see that the Inquisitor survived his own explosion. Suddenly, a mysterious man appears and says that sacrificing oneself is easy. He asks the remaining Inquisitors if there are any among them who are not ready to die. The enraged Inquisitor calls his words nonsense and rushes forward again. He tries to blow himself up again, shouting orders for everyone around him to die. The Inquisitor is shocked to realize that his self-destruct ability did not work. A stranger appears right in front of him and asks if he still hasn't figured it out. His figure darkens, and he says that he did not give the Inquisitor permission to die. He creates a sphere of dark magic in his hand, declaring that the path to death is forbidden to them. The stranger casts the Abomination Confluence curse on the remaining Inquisitors. The bodies of enemies begin to distort under the influence of dark magic, causing them pain. They merge into a single, formless mass of flesh, which is worse than death itself. The stranger considers it pointless to call to account those who do not value life. He leaves the monster in its new, hideous form to think. Dane kneels down to the dying knight, listening to his last will. He looks at his comrade with understanding, accepting his dying request. Dane vows that the Sax line will never forget the devotion of the fallen knights. Approaching the stranger, he says that there are many victims, and there is no excuse for him. He asks if he blames himself, and Dane admits that he led the knights to their graves. The stranger thinks for a moment, then tells Dane not to blame himself for what happened. He asks if they really thought that the two of them could defeat the orcs and Inquisitors. The man consoles Dane, saying that he did everything he could. Dane uses magic on a fallen knight to fulfill his will to serve even after death. The resurrected knight stands up and Dane asks to be allowed to return to duty. Meanwhile, the action moves to the Scarlet Magic Tower under the moonlight. In the bedroom of Marquis Juris, a red-haired man wakes up next to a woman. She asks him about his dreams, and he replies that he feels like he is still sleeping. The woman calls him the most handsome man in the Empire, to which he laughs modestly. She coquettishly asks how she managed to get him, and he asks her to guess. The Marquis tenderly kisses his companion, pulling her towards him for a kiss. Suddenly, the woman pulls away, horrified by the taste of iron in her mouth. She realizes with horror that blood is coming from her mouth. The man with red hair smiles ominously and asks if she liked the drink. The scene changes to a battlefield where knights in dark armor fight huge orcs. The blue-haired knight realizes that a mighty orc leader stands before him. The young gentleman in black armor declares that he and his knights will deal with the enemy. The boy charges, slashing at the orc with his glowing purple sword. The blue-haired knight is shocked to realize that his young master possesses necromancy. He continues to attack furiously, his sword leaving a purple trail in the air. The knights begin to retreat under the enemy's onslaught, but their commander remains in place. The knight tries to protect his master by shouting about the danger, but he remains calm. He concentrates the magic, counting the revolutions per minute and realizing that it is not enough. The young man decides that he needs to summon an even more ferocious and powerful force. A horned demoness appears behind him, hugs him, and offers help. He understands that accepting her power in front of everyone is too risky. The demoness reassures him, saying that she likes his world and will not harm him. She promises to never do anything he might not like. With these words, she envelops him in dark energy and invites him to play together. A huge shadow grows behind the boy, giving him a frightening appearance. The orc leader looks with surprise and fear at the young man who has gained new strength. He uses a new ability, Shadow Stalker, attacking the enemy with tendrils of darkness. Dark tentacles pierce the orc leader, causing him to drop his massive axe. The knights shout with delight, celebrating their young master's victory over the orc leader. Having defeated the orc leader, the Dark Prince became famous as the Defender of the North. The story moves to the Magic Tower of the North, a majestic structure. In the tower, a long-haired man asks a subordinate about the results of the investigation. The subordinate reports that the enemies knew their plans, which means there is a spy among them. When asked about suspects, the subordinate names some truth monsters. He asks in surprise if the Elders of the Black Tower are in cahoots with the Scarlet Tower. The narrator explains that the Black and Red Squad was created to solve common problems. After the war, the detachment was disbanded, but some of its members joined the Red Tower. The action moves to an underground workshop, where a boy stands over a bound knight. He looks at the bodies of his faithful knights who sacrificed themselves in battle. The boy tells his lord that as their master, he must respect their will. The duke reflects on his son's potential and the darkness that could engulf him. The father tells his son that one day he will grow up, surpass him, and lead the Black Tower. The boy immediately understands the hidden meaning in his father's words. He realizes that he must kill the head of the Black Tower, his father, with his own hands. Returning to the present, the young man, surrounded by a dark aura, asks about the conditions of the duel. He is determined to understand what exactly his father meant when he spoke of the top of the tower. The father encourages his son to show him everything he is capable of in the upcoming fight. The youth calls two warriors from the darkness, Black Sword Sax. The father notes in surprise the purity of the spell as the shadow warrior attacks him. He calmly and confidently meets the blow of the sword aimed at his head. The young man remembers adding an element to the spell that made evasion impossible. The shadow pursuers quickly attack the father from two sides simultaneously. The warriors freeze just before they strike, their swords stopping. The son is surprised to see that the shadows he summoned suddenly stop. The father explains that losing control over the shadow creatures is tantamount to death. The young man remembers that darkness always clings to a thicker and stronger darkness. Determined not to give up, he decides to focus as hard as he did last time. One of the warriors breaks free from his father's control and resumes the attack. The young man sees in horror his father's severed head lying on the floor. The father's headless body remains standing, saying that he is not allowed to die. Father explains that magic is the power that turns imagination into reality. The one who stands at the pinnacle of magic is able to control the laws of the world at his will. The son understands that he was not destined to win this battle from the very beginning. Soon after the raid ceased, a messenger arrived with a summons to the emperor. The envoy begins his speech to the father and son in the throne room. He conveys that the emperor is flattered by the loyalty of the House of Saxe, but not grateful. The envoy particularly notes the great achievements of the young master, which are well known at court. As a reward and to develop relations between the factions, he makes an offer. A young man is invited to the Red Magic Tower Academy in the imperial capital. The father believes that sending his son to the capital now is too dangerous and risky. He asks his son if he really wants to go into a death trap himself. The son reminds them that the heir to the Red Tower will also come to them as part of the exchange. He is confident that the enemies will not be able to act rashly while their heir is with them. His father reminds him of the recent attack by the Inquisitors, doubting his safety. The son claims that he will not be attacked in the capital due to political consequences. The father still asks how to explain the previous attack of the Inquisitors. The young man believes that this was only a test of his strength, initiated by the Marquis. If they wanted to kill him, they would have sent many more than 12 people. He declares that he wants to see the Empire with his own eyes and respond to the provocation. The father sighs, saying that he simultaneously understands and does not understand his son's aspirations. He admits that his son was right, and that as a father, he missed something important. The father agrees, but warns that from the moment he arrives in the capital, everything will change. The son, with a smile, promises to take everything into account and act for the sake of his father and his home. Meanwhile, the red-haired young man eagerly awaits the guest's arrival. He reflects on how, in youth, curiosity always prevails over fear. He addresses a petrified woman named Elizabeth, reproaching her for her stupidity. Kissing her hand, he says that her blood was truly delicious. The red-haired vampire says that a quick death is a blessing, like petals falling in a storm. Compared to death, he considers immortality to be fleeting, empty, and meaningless. In a fit of emotion, he clenches his fist and smashing the glass, splashing its contents. He compares his life to a weed that is not allowed to bloom. With a creepy smile, he greets the arriving young Master Dale. A carriage is traveling along a forest road in which, according to rumors, the Empire's most powerful talent is located. Since the day he saw his true form, he has not been able to talk to him calmly. Once you see that image, it can't be erased by any excuses or apologies. The young gentleman from the House of Saxe honored them by going through this difficult path. Dale arrives at the Imperial Academy from the Red Magic Tower. He is met by a group of people led by a red-haired man. The red-haired man, Marquis Juris, says it is a great honor to meet again. Dale thanks him for the invitation and mentions that he has heard of the Marquis' exploits. The Marquis praises Dale for his military heroism, the fame of which thunders throughout the Empire. Juris recalls how this bastard allied himself with the barbarians and reduced the knightly order to ashes. He says that every time the wind carried rumors of the Dark Lord's exploits, he admired him. Dale modestly replies that people tend to exaggerate, but the Marquis disagrees. Dale of House Saxe greets the Emperor's men with respect. One of the Marquis' companions notes with a smile that the young man has learned good manners. Dale holds back his anger, thinking that for the sake of House Saxe, he must wait for the right moment. The Marquis finds the young man amusing, especially his bloodshot eyes. In the lecture hall, Dale is bored during a lesson on opposite elements. Students whisper that this is a Dark Lord who reached the third circle at only 11 years old. Another student doesn't believe the rumors and thinks he's just a brat from the Black Magic Tower. Several weeks have passed since his arrival, and the final exam is approaching. Graduating from the academy and becoming a Red Tower mage guarantees success in high society. So the academy has never welcomed outsiders, and Dale feels like an outcast. He doubts that Marquis Juris sent him here simply to listen to lectures. The professor timidly asks the student Leonard, who is lounging in his chair, "What is the matter?" Leonard states that the lesson is too boring and the teacher apologizes. He reminds that since the Magic Towers are conducting an exchange program and the young lord is here, Leonard proposes to conduct a proper exchange of knowledge between magicians. In the academy, like in a kingdom, there is a hierarchy, and at the top of it is the king. Dale realizes that this king is the son of the previous flame-eyed master of the Red Magic Tower. He recalls the rumors about himself, the greatest genius of the Empire, who broke through to the 20th floor of the tower. Leonard wants to personally witness the talent that is rumored to have personally slain the orc leader. Dale gets up and walks over to him, saying that people tend to exaggerate rumors. Leonard replies that everyone is a hero in words, and invites the young lord to prove himself in action. The teacher anxiously asks Dale if he knows the rules of magical duels. Leonard thinks that for a lord from the northern border, he likes to stand out. Dale confidently declares that he will make Leonard bend his knee to the Empire's greatest talent. The professor asks worriedly if the life pendant will be needed in the duel. He fears that someone might be seriously injured or even killed in this battle. Dale asks who will be held responsible if he uses magic with the intent to kill. The frightened professor shouts that the duel is cancelled, which shocks Leonard. He begs Leonard not to make the situation worse and offers to use the life pendant. Leonard angrily refuses, stating that he doesn't need help to defeat the brat. He pushes the professor away and promises to show him what a real exchange of knowledge is. Dale asks Leonard how long he can wait and confirms his readiness. Leonard announces that the loser will not be allowed to take the exam and will leave the class. He adds that if he loses, he will withdraw from the final exam. Dale considers the terms fair and agrees to the duel with a grin. Leonard creates a magic chain and gives the command to begin the battle. The fight begins, and Leonard immediately attacks with his chain. Dale easily blocks the magic chain's attack with his dark shield. The clash of their magic causes a powerful explosion, throwing Leonard back. Student observers are shocked by the incredible pressure emanating from the duelists. One of them admits that he doesn't even have time to follow their fast movements. Dale and Leonard continue to exchange fast, high-speed punches. Leonard spins the chain around himself, creating a protective barrier against Dale's attacks. Dale breaks through the defense and finds himself right in front of his opponent. His dark magic strike hits its target, causing another explosion. Suddenly, Dale falls to his knees, breathing heavily after the blow he took. Suddenly, another student appears, accusing Leonard of cowardice and foul play. Leonard smirks and pretends not to understand what is being discussed. The student points to the spectators who secretly helped Leonard with their magic. Leonard turns to the professor and threateningly asks him to keep quiet about what happened. He turns to Dale again, offering to continue the duel and reveal true talent. But the pyromancer student stops him, offering to finish the duel. Leonard mockingly says that his opponent still doesn't understand the situation. The pyromancer calmly invites him to look around. Leonard's assistants panic when their mana disappears, and Dale calls him pathetic. Dale stands up and asks what kind of pyromaniac would let his flame be taken away so easily. Dale takes them to his world, where Leonard cannot use fire magic. Calling the situation boring, Dale summons dark tentacles to attack. The tentacles grab not only Leonard, but also his minions, who also ended up in this world. Horrified, Leonard realizes that Dale is going to kill him. Suddenly, a professor appears in this world and begs Dale to stop. He offers his apologies and asks that Leonard be spared for his sake. Dale says he didn't mean to kill anyone and lets them go, leaving the professor on his knees. In a rage, Leonard hits the professor, shouting who gave him the right to speak on behalf of the Voltaire family. Leonard shouts that because of a professor who doesn't know his place, the reputation of their house has suffered. The professor falls to his knees and begs for forgiveness, admitting that he was wrong. Leonard kicks the professor in the face, calling his pleas for forgiveness nonsense. Dale suddenly appears and orders everyone to shut up and get out. Leonard repeats the order with irritation, telling them to take the idiot and get out. The two lead the professor away, discussing Leonard's intolerable character and weakness. The people leaving discuss how Leonard almost killed a man, and now they won't be able to pass the exam. Leonard clenches his bleeding fist, calling them rotten scum in anger. A red-haired man appears in front of Leonard, calling what happened a performance. The stranger calls Leonard's behavior pathetic, and he recognizes him as the Lord of the Red Tower. Leonard asks what brings Lord here, but he evades the answer. Leonard assumes that the guest came to laugh at him, but he denies it. The Lord offers a way to get rid of the humiliation by opening the box containing the artifact. Leonard doesn't understand why he's being offered this, and Lord doesn't want his talent to go to waste. The Lord explains that the artifact is dangerous, and that anyone who touches it will burn to ashes. But if Leonard can handle it, he'll get the chance. Otherwise, he'll just burn out faster. Dale wonders why Juris called him here. To put brats in their place? He remembers the day of the battle and comes to the conclusion that these youths are simply ridiculous. An elf enters Dale's room and he politely invites her in. Dale thanks his companion for coming with him to the capital, and she smiles. He asks her if she likes her classes at the academy, but she replies that his lessons are better. She remembers seeing his face full of sorrow on the day he lost his knights. Dale says with pain that it is his fault for the loss of the Saxe knights, because they protected him. The elf gently reminds him of her promise to always be by his side. She takes his hand, explaining that her promise was about more than just protecting him. Teacher Sepia says that she does not want to see even a shadow of sadness on his face and hugs him. She doesn't understand why someone so young can have such a sad look. Dale thanks her because now he is not alone, and she is next to him. A few days later, as the final exam approaches, the professor addresses two students. When the professor announces a duel between Dale and Valor, they are interrupted by a scream. Leonard appears and everyone asks in surprise why he is here. The professor says they've already started and he can't help if Leonard causes trouble again. Leonard looks angrily at the professor, asking how he can even talk about helping. He orders the magician stuck on the fourth circle not to dare to teach him. Leonard turns to Dale, declaring that he has come to put an end to this. He proposes to start a duel that will determine which of them is the greatest talent of the Empire. Leonard charges forward using a flaming red chain. Dale dodges the blow and a powerful chain attack cracks the floor. Leonard mocks the defeated Dale, asking where his confidence went and comparing him to a rat. Leonard grins maliciously, saying that he has finally mastered his power and will now show everything. He activates Overload, accelerating his magic circles to the limit. This is the point of no return and a desperate step. Dale realizes that the ruby bracelet on Leonard's hand is forcibly draining his mana. Dale is confident that Leonard cannot handle such power, and if something goes wrong, the bracelet will absorb him. Leonard continues to mock, asking if Dale has gotten too big for his britches after his last win. Dale easily blocks the hot chain attack with his purple sword. A powerful explosion from the clash of magic frightens the students watching the duel. Leonard laughs maniacally as he attacks with the chain, asking why Dale can't do anything. While parrying the blow, Dale calmly tells his opponent that he made a mistake. Dale makes a swift dash forward, shrouded in a dark purple aura. Leonard is shocked, and Dale suggests that he give up the artifact before it's too late. Leonard, in a rage, shouts, "Who is Dale to judge the limits of his potential?" He shouts that nothing is impossible, and his red aura flares up with renewed vigor. Leonard rises into the air, surrounded by streams of red energy, and calls upon others to see his true power. In ecstasy, he shouts that he succeeded because he was able to reach the fourth magic circle. Leonard declares that this is his world, where Dale is destined for defeat. And Dale sees this as a problem. Leonard's world of consciousness leaked into reality. This paradox became possible due to his great talent. In Dale's head, he hears Leonard's voice calling himself the greatest genius of the Empire and the pride of House Walter. Then he hears the voice of Leonard's father, who says that talent alone is not enough to survive at home. Dale realizes that Leonard's emotions are flowing from his mind world and projected onto other mages. But Leonard's world is different. His fourth circle is out of control, and the guy is going crazy. Leonard demands reverence and admiration. Dale mentally calls him a hopeless idiot. Dale offers to show Leonard his world of the mind, since he wanted to see it so much. He will open his world, but he doubts that Leonard will be able to cope with it. Dale warns that his world is filled with malice and emptiness that he has absorbed. Dale releases his dark purple energy, which rushes towards Leonard in a powerful stream. Leonard falls to his knees, shocked and frightened by the sudden force that has fallen upon him. Leonard screams in horror, not understanding who Dale is. He replies that here is everything he dreamed of. Leonard crawls away in fear, begging him not to come closer. Dale asks if he was jealous of his talent. A dark figure looms over Leonard, asking why he runs away from the responsibility that comes with talent. The figure says that Leonard is not ready to pay the price, and he can only sob in horror. In reality, a defeated Leonard lies on the floor and mumbles apologies. Dale says that they are just in time. Dale orders Leonard to be taken to the hospital. The students and teacher are shocked by what they see. Leonard is led away, clutching his head and continuing to whisper that he is very sorry. Thus ended the incident with the raging mana at the academy. Dale stands calmly with a sword in his hand. Leonard was expelled for personal reasons, and rumors began to circulate among the students that he had gone crazy. Meanwhile, the head of the house, Walter, clenches his fist in rage, not believing what has happened to his great family. He curses Dale, the little brat from the cursed house. Leonard lies at his feet, mumbling apologies. Count Walter, the tower's elder, looks coldly at his son and says he has no excuses. The master of the Red Tower grins and says he understands their disappointment, while Count Walter panises and pronounces his title. He sympathetically remarks that Count Walter's heart must be broken by his defeat at the hands of young Leonard. The Tower Master smiles knowingly as Count Walter apologizes and calls Leonard a weakling. The Count declares that he has no claims against the eldest son of the House of Saxe, and the Master of the Tower asks again with doubt. With a sly smile, he offers the Count his help in carrying out his plan of revenge. In the Academy's lecture hall, students notice that their professor is late today. The students discuss Leonard's expulsion, and Dale reflects that his opponent was stronger than he thought. Suddenly, the Master of the Red Tower enters the auditorium and greets everyone gathered. He announces that he will teach the lesson today instead of their usual professor. Dale recognizes him as Yuri's and tries to understand what he had in mind by coming here. Juris begins his lecture by mentioning an unpleasant incident in which Leonard Walter outdid himself. He reminds the students that many of them had previously trembled and bowed their heads before this student. And now these same people are happily gossiping about Leonard's departure from the Academy. He asks with shining eyes how such a talentless scum could confuse their minds. One of the students is nervous, and Juris calls for an end to the talk about mediocrity. Juris announces that he will give them a history lesson, which attracts Dale's attention. He begins the story of the war to unify the Empire, which took many lives in the name of a great goal. At that time, the Black and Red Towers created an unofficial division for scientific research. Dale is shocked when Juris refers to the unit as the Black and Red Enforcers. Juris grins and explains that under the guise of good intentions, they conducted experiments on prisoners of war. He describes brutal experiments in which people were buried alive and their torn bodies were sewn together. The students are horrified when Juris declares that ethics on the battlefield is an unaffordable luxury. The students cannot believe that such a unit exists, and Juris notices their unexpected reaction. He encourages them to be proud of the wisdom of their ancestors as they strive to become mages of the Red Tower. Juris turns to Dale, asking if his conscience is bothering him like the others. He asks Dale directly whether he would choose wisdom over morality. Juris recalls the Dark Duke, who, bound by morality, turned away from wisdom. Dale remembers how his father dispersed the security forces, and all records of them disappeared into oblivion. But Juris is sure that deep down, Dale is not like that, because he saw in his achievements the true face of darkness. With a devilish grin, he declares that, compared to the local scum, the true devil slumbers in Dale. He prophesies that one day Dale will stand at the top of the Black Magic Tower and rule over it. Juris extends his hand and invites Dale to gain greater wisdom and power with him. Dale realizes that he is being called upon to rebuild the Black and Red Enforcers using his talent. Dale stands up and, appreciating the offer, politely reminds them that there is a certain order. He says that his father is still full of strength, but Juris advises not to worry about it. Suddenly, there is a snap of fingers and an invisible force throws Dale back. Dale finds himself in a snowy world and at first thinks it's snow, but then realizes he was wrong. He looks at his palm and realizes with horror that the particles falling from the sky are ash. Looking around, he sees the ruins of modern buildings and guesses what kind of place this is. The memory of the man in the hat flashes, and Dale clenches his fist, because he will never forget this landscape. Dale, standing in the middle of the ruins, says that this world is truly amazing and majestic. The red-haired mage replies that only Dale is allowed to set foot here, and the other students will never see it. He explains that steel dragons fly in the sky, spewing fire whose power he cannot match. The steel dragon drops a bomb that flies rapidly downwards. A powerful explosion is heard in the distance, and a fireball rises into the sky. The red-haired one calls with delight to see the great empire of fire and steel, conquering even the Titans. Dale realizes that this is the higher power and asks if they called the hero for this wisdom. The magician recalls that the hero was a useful soldier, but was unable to grasp the wisdom of this empire with his mind. Dale grins, thinking that his interlocutor doesn't understand anything, because he himself is the embodiment of this wisdom. The red-haired mage says that this is why he brought Dale to this place. Dale asks if he is seeking absolute power through the Black-Red Alliance and is told that he is. He asks Dale to think about his proposal because time is the most valuable resource. The red-haired man suggests going back and snaps his fingers. He suddenly mentions that Walter Flameblood seems to be very angry with Dale. This is the man whose son Dale killed, and he too was once a commander of the Black-Red Enforcers. He says Dale is free to leave, even if refusal will lead to conflict with Walter's house. But if Dale helps eliminate Walter, he will receive a worthy reward. The magician smiles cheerfully and says that it is time to wrap up their lecture. He snaps his fingers again and they are instantly back in the lecture hall. The red-haired man leaves and Dale looks after him resolutely, knowing that he won't have to think long about the answer. That same night, at the Dark Duke's estate on the outskirts of the imperial capital, Dale sits on the bed, surrounded by a dark aura, and remembers the piles of ash and the ruins of the city. He realized that showing that world was a warning, and refusing meant he would be next. Dale grits his teeth, determined that he will never again allow anyone to use his life for their greater purposes. Teacher Sepia bursts into the room, and Dale looks at her in surprise. Walter stands in the destroyed room, saying that he thought Dale would escape. Walter, surrounded by flames, menacingly asks if Dale is ready to face the consequences. He stands at full height, his hand engulfed in flames, and looks at Dale with disdain. He calls Dale a pathetic bastard of the Sachs house who dared to ruin his son's life. Dale stands before Sepia, protecting her, and prepares to face the consequences of his actions. Walter attacks, releasing a powerful blast of fire. Teacher Sepia steps forward and is enveloped in blue protective magic. She turns to Dale with a smile and reminds him that she promised to protect him. Walter recognizes her as the Blue Tower Elder, who is rumored to have fled to Sax's house. He chuckles, saying it doesn't matter as long as the Lord of the Red Tower is on his side. Walter declares that no one will stand in his way and charges forward. Sepia creates a wall of ice that blocks his fiery onslaught. Behind Walter, Dale notices bodies lying on the floor and thinks that they are victims of experiments. One of the captives, chained, begs to be killed to end his suffering. Walter asks Dale if he knows why he is called Flame Blood. Walter asks with a grin what will happen to the body if the blood is brought to a boil. He says that countless lives had to be sacrificed to create the perfect formula for flame magic. Walter declares that other people's sacrifices drive progress, while behind him a man writhes in the fire. He calls it a law of nature. But the blue-haired elf coldly replies that she heard him. She sees him as nothing but scum, undeserving of mercy. But Walter denies this. He believes that magicians must build a tower of wisdom, testing and proving theories at any cost. Walter screams that the Blue Tower mages will never understand their ideas for the greater good. The elf looks at him with disdain and says that he is worse than a beast, preparing to attack. She yells at Dale to move away, but he firmly replies that he can't. Dale remembers the screams of the victims begging for death and realizes he cannot stand by. Pictures of the past are still in his head, and he cannot forget his hatred for the Red Tower. With determination in his eyes, he swears that he will not allow anyone to use other people's lives for greater purposes. Dale declares that he is not ready to forgive, which only causes Walter to ridicule him. Walter says dismissively that a drop of talent went to Dale's head. He screams that only blood matters and directs his puppet victims at Dale. The elf uses the freeze spell to stop the people running towards them. Walter chuckles, saying it's not enough to stop his bleeding. He snaps his fingers and the frozen bodies begin to crack under the influence of his magic. Frozen victims explode into bloody shreds, flying in all directions. The elf casts a dissonance spell and creates a magical web. She warns Dale to be careful as he prepares to attack, surrounded by a dark aura. Dale grins maliciously, thinking that he has such an outstanding teacher behind him. He asks what more could he want and creates a shadow portal under his feet. Dale dives into the shadows and rushes towards Walter, remaining invisible. Walter panics and orders his slaves to protect him from a surprise attack. Dale uses the Shadow Stalker skill to quickly deal with the puppets. He deflects the fire attack with his shadow sword. An enraged Walter screams at how the pathetic brat dares to oppose him and creates fireballs. He shouts, "Burn to ashes!" and launches a stream of fiery projectiles at Dale. The elf says the word flash, preparing her spell. Dale dodges an attack from a puppet that suddenly appears in front of him. He deftly cuts down his opponents with his shadow blade, continuing to move. Walter calls him a fool and says the flames will consume him, creating more blood clots. Suddenly, the blood clots are trapped in ice cubes thanks to the isolation spell. The elf states that this is the perfect cover, and his attacks will no longer work. Walter watches in disbelief as shadow spikes emerge from the ground. He struggles to fight off the shadows that attack him from all sides. Dale asks with a grin if that's all he can do and where his vaunted formula is. Walter, in a rage, screams at them not to make fun of him and grabs the artifact on his hand. He reminds him that Dale is just a third circle brat and releases a powerful stream of red energy. In a rage, Walter shouts that the brainless brat will not leave here alive. Walter screams, clutching his chest as he is enveloped in increasingly powerful red energy. Dale notes that this is the Elder of the Red Magic Tower, and his mana output is simply incredible. Dale yells, "Not so fast," and swings his dark sword at Walter. He delivers a powerful slash from top to bottom, leaving a purple trail behind his sword. Walter stops the sword strike with his hand, which is engulfed in red flames. With his eyes burning, Walter shouts, "Take it!" and prepares a counterattack. Dale is thrown back and lets out a groan of pain, and Sepia screams his name in alarm. Walter laughs maniacally, urging Dale to continue fighting him. He declares that he hasn't even begun to avenge his son yet, and creates fireballs. Fireballs fly towards Dale, exploding around him and forcing him to dodge. Dale tries to defend himself with a blue barrier, but the explosions push him and Sepia back. Sepia, holding his hand, admits that a sixth circle magician going all in is very dangerous. Sepia creates a shield, but Walter only insults her, calling her a pathetic elf. Walter screams that this brat has defiled the honor of Walter's house, and she will not understand it. He furiously promises to burn them to the ground and gathers a huge clot of fiery energy. Sepia shouts that he, who justified atrocities by war, should not talk about honor. Walter asks with disdain what she could possibly know. He declares that he will start with her filthy mouth and directs fireballs at them. The two companions flee from the fire, realizing that the protective shield has a limit. Walter watches them hide behind the barrier and wonders how long they can hold out. The shield cracks under the onslaught of fire, and Dale realizes that he cannot move forward like this. Dale is looking for a way to turn the whole situation in his favor in one move. He turns to Teacher Sepia with a request to simply hold the front. Walter scoffs at the attempt to stop his attack with a pathetic barrier. He promises to show them the ultimate technique of fiery blood and burn them along with the barrier. Walter launches a huge fireball using the incinerate spell. Dale decides to use all his power, and a demonic entity appears behind him. His sword, shrouded in dark energy, transforms into a large rifle. He decides to remember his fighting instincts, and an image from the past appears before him. Dale fires the shadow rifle, releasing a powerful blast of dark energy. A dark beam pierces Walter's fireball, tearing it apart. Walter is shocked and can't believe his incinerate has been stopped. A beam of dark energy hits Walter directly and knocks him back. There is a huge hole in Walter's chest, and blood is spurting from his mouth. Walter falls to his knees, coughing up blood as he acknowledges Dale's strength. But he warns that this is not a victory, and Walter will have to pay for desecrating the house. Dale asks with a crazy smile why he screams while creating dark swords. He reminds Walter of his words about progress being built on blood and stabs him in the arm. Dale smiles maliciously and says that Walter's blood will turn the wheel of history. Walter, bleeding, asks Dale if he is not happy and asks him to just kill him. Dale coldly replies no and, grabbing Walter by the hair, promises to rip out his limbs one by one. With a mad smile, Dale promises to give Walter a slow, painful death in agony for every person. Dale's hand turns into dark blades and pierces Walter, who screams in unbearable pain. Walter was just a pawn of the Lord of the Red Tower, and did not realize until the very end that he was being manipulated. Dale says the name of the Black-Red Squad, and the elf standing behind him freezes in shock. The surprised elf, Teacher Sepia, asks Dale how he knows this name. Sepia explains that Lord Juris came to the academy today, and Dale listens to her in surprise. He ordered the extermination of everyone who knew about the detachment, because this was an inconvenient truth for the Empire. Sepia considers Juris dangerous and cunning, and Dale agrees with her, seeing his ghostly image. Dale turns to the elf and gratefully thanks her for protecting him. Sepia says that when his world opened up to her, she saw only a horizon of loneliness and emptiness. Looking at the empty horizon, Dale realizes that she too wanders along it in eternal loneliness. Dale hugs the teacher, confesses his feelings, and asks her to wait a little. Sepia is shocked. He kisses the embarrassed Sepia on the cheek, causing her to freeze in complete amazement. Dale promises to wait until he becomes a man worthy of her. Sepia is still in a stupor. Sepia sheepishly agrees, and Dale says with a sly smile, "Or maybe." Sepia yells at him to be quiet and shakes him, Dale noting her powerful defensive skills. The knights see a huge barrier and are ordered to cordon off the perimeter and prepare for an attack. The mind worlds of high-ranking mages serve as barriers, and it is almost impossible to break through. The Sax knights who arrived at the scene could only hope that young Master Dale was all right. The barrier collapses, and the captain orders the knights to hold their formation and not let anyone through. Dale and Sepia emerge from behind the collapsed barrier, and the captain calls their names with relief. Dale says he's fine and asks about the knights. The captain replies that there were no deaths. The captain apologizes for not being able to protect him from the Red Tower Elder's attack. Dale thinks that an attack on the heir to black magic could shake the entire empire. The captain muses that without Sepia's help, they wouldn't have stood a chance against an Elder-class mage. The captain is glad that the knights were not harmed, but Dale asks him to keep the day's events a secret. Dale states that he wants to try something himself, which makes the captain uneasy. He threatens that the rumors will damage the knights' reputation and orders them to wait for his instructions. The captain conveys the order of the eldest son of the Sax family, and the knights accept it. Dale remembers the image of Earth and doesn't understand how it could have ended up in another person's mind. Dale is horrified to think that Juris really knows who he really is. He shakes his head, telling himself that it's impossible. Otherwise, Juris wouldn't have stopped. He remembers how he was treated in his past life and doubts that his new status has changed anything. Dale decides that Juris doesn't know him, but wants to get the Dark Lord and tries to understand his goal. He decides that it is time to flee the capital because his game of being a student is over. At the same time, in the castle of the Duke of Saxe, the head of the family sits at his desk. The Duke is informed of the visitor. Hearing the name Ray Juris, he thinks for a moment. The Duke allows the visitor to enter, and the young man stops in front of a huge door. Ray Juris, the heir to the Red Magic Tower and the Marquise's adopted son, appears before us. Once upon a time, the Crimson Lord forced gifted children to fight to the death, and Ray was the only survivor. Everyone knows him as the son of the Marquise, but in reality, he is only a puppet, completely submissive to the will of his master. To most, Ray was a commoner, but the Dark Duke was one of the few who knew the true reason for his choice. Ray enters the office and addresses the Dark Duke, who coldly orders him to speak. Ray begins his story by mentioning that his father and His Majesty the Emperor share a common goal. The Duke interrupts him, saying that Ray is talking too much and demands that he get down to business. Ray presents the Duke with a scroll containing a list of the Black Tower's employees. The Duke asks what Ray wants in return, and he asks the Black-Red Squad to assist in their capture. The Duke explains that the Emperor desires the complete destruction of all participants and information about a certain event. He speculates that among the Black Tower rats, there are commanders of the Black-Red Security Forces unit. The Duke agrees to the terms and takes the list, pleased with the quick resolution of the issue. He unties the scroll, thinking that the traitors who have allied themselves with the Red Tower deserve death. Now it will be easier to identify targets. Suddenly, a guard knocks down one of the prisoners. Several people are kneeling before the Duke, and one of them is crying out in despair to his lordship. The Duke coldly asks if he is asking for mercy, and the prisoner begs him for mercy. The man clings to the Duke's leg, promising eternal loyalty and his life in exchange for salvation. The Duke reminds him of the fate he had prepared for his son, leaving the prisoner in shock. The prisoner understands that he will not be spared, and he smiles bitterly at his foolish hope of salvation. He begins to laugh, calling the Dark Duke a disgusting and hypocritical man. The commander accuses the Duke of sacrificing prisoners for experiments and shedding blood. He screams that the real monster here is the Duke, and he won't be able to escape his past. The prisoner asks if the son will be proud of his father after learning the truth. The Duke calls upon the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper appears behind the Duke, and the captive screams that the mask has finally fallen off. He continues to mock, claiming that the Duke is a true monster and no match for him. The Duke directs dark energy at the captive, while the Grim Reaper behind him prepares to attack. The prisoners are defeated. The Duke gives the order to get rid of them all today. He frowns, thinking to himself that he doesn't want Dale to see this. Sometime later, the majestic castle of Saxe is shown, bathed in sunlight. A young man with dark hair stands in front of the castle, rejoicing at returning to his native land. The female knight asks him about his fencing training, to which he replies that everything is more or less going well. He suddenly smiles. The embarrassed girl asks about the reason, but he replies that it's just because. The guy says he's glad to see her again, which makes the girl blush and get even angrier. He asks what's wrong, but she turns away and shyly shouts that nothing is wrong. The girl quietly calls him a fool, but he hears it and asks again in surprise. She shouts that he is a fool. Her feelings for the boy she liked grew every day. On the training ground, an instructor commands recruits as they practice spear strikes. The purple-haired instructor yells at them to keep their center of gravity directly over their feet. The instructor notices the approaching young Master Dale and welcomes him back. They observe the training, and the instructor notes that the recruits' skill and talent are rapidly improving. The instructor thanks Dale for the opportunity, and Dale accepts his words with restraint. The narrator recalls Captain Iona's 100 mercenaries, whose loyalty was based on faith. They decided to stay in the duchy and, under the guidance of the knights, devoted themselves to non-stop training. The recruits greet the young master, and Ionas orders them to call him commander from now on. One of the mercenaries can't believe his luck and vows to do everything to live up to expectations. Dale appoints Ionas as his deputy, and he happily accepts the new position. Dale notes the fighters' diligence, and one of them confirms that they are training to the point of exhaustion. A pleased Dale says it's time to test their real skills, and the fighters eagerly agree. Dale announces plans to start his own business, saying the infantry unit is just the beginning. Its purpose is to be a military organization for combat, reconnaissance, and special operations. He specifies that it will be a private military organization that will soon become the greatest in its field. The fighters are surprised, And even Iones whispers to Dale that this is the first time he has heard of such a plan. Dale chides Ionesis for playing along and thinks to himself that he was completely serious. He reflects that it doesn't matter whether they understand him now. The main thing is that they follow his orders. He ponders a name for his organization, considering options like Black Shield or Shadow. An unfamiliar blonde youth approaches Dale. Noting his early return from the capital, the young man introduces himself as Ray, the eldest son of Marquis Juris, and Dale is shocked by the news. Dale remembers that Ray is the adopted son of the Crimson Lord and the heir to the Magic Tower. Dale greets him politely, but Ray coldly asks if he has any business. Ray addresses Dale by his full name and asks him for one lesson. He calls Dale the genius of the Empire and offers to fight him in a magical duel. Ray smirks and suddenly releases a powerful stream of red magical energy. He is enveloped in an intense heat, and his mana is described as the purest red fire from the abyss. Dale understands that an ordinary second circle mage is not capable of releasing such a huge amount of mana. Ray guesses that Dale knows about his artifact and says that he has one too. With a creepy smile, he confirms that for him, it is a humble artifact. He remembers being hungry as a child and initially eating rats and insects to survive. He then moved on to humans, eating their flesh, organs, and even bone marrow. Dale listens in shock as Ray admits that he ultimately couldn't resist and ate the whole thing. His artifact, the dragon's jaw, manifests, and he calls humans delicious and nutritious. Dale thinks that this artifact gives terrifying power and compares it to his grimoire. Dale grins, realizing that he is facing the Crimson Lord's monster. Much to Ray's confusion, surrounded by a dark aura, Dale replies with a smile that he was simply thinking about their similarities. Dale asks if Ray is afraid of another monster, but he only asks again with an irritated expression. Their energies collide, and Dale grabs Ray's hand, surprising him with his strength. Suddenly, a man with long hair appears, and Dale recognizes him as his father, the Dark Duke. Dale explains to his father that they were simply discussing with his son who would inherit the Black Tower. The Duke interrupts their conversation, saying that it is already late, and orders both of them to go to their rooms. Ray obediently obeys the Duke's order and leaves, and Dale is about to follow his example. As he leaves, Ray tells Dale with a smile that he hopes they will be good friends in the future. That same night, Alan returns to his mansion. His little daughter happily greets him. He hugs his daughter Lisa, who is happy about his return. His wife Elena comes up to them and says that Lisa has been waiting for him all day. Alan looks at his wife tenderly and thanks her for her hard work. Elena laughs shyly, surprised by his sudden gratitude. He explains that she makes it a pleasure for him to come home. Later, Elena finds him alone on the balcony, concerned about his condition. He says he needs to take care of some things. She takes his hand and promises to always be with him on his journey. Elena says that she believes in him because he raised Dale well. Alan hugs her and thanks her for her understanding. The action moves to the necropolis, to the Black Magic Tower. This is the supreme elder of the tower, Edgar, a mage of the Seventh Circle. Alan appears before Edgar and greets him. He asks his old friend directly why he betrayed him. Edgar accuses Alan of abandoning darkness and morality. He recalls their successful experiment on soldiers. Edgar reproaches him for rejecting the magic of the Ninth Circle and the truth. He asks if the betrayal was worth losing everything. Edgar screams in rage about the pitiful state of the tower full of cowards. Alan says he doesn't want to kill him, but Edgar insists on a fight. Edgar remembers what a monster Alan was and wishes for his return. Alan replies that he has not become weaker, but simply made a different choice. Edgar, with a sinister smile, asks what could bring the monster back. Alan claims he won't allow this, but Edgar is sure of the opposite. Suddenly an alarm sounds, announcing an attack on the mansion. The attackers want to burn out Alan's weaknesses and bring out the monster within him. The leader calls on his people not to retreat and not to doubt. They attack in the name of the Black Magic Tower and liberation by truth. Edgar gloats, realizing that he hit Alan where it hurt. He begins to prepare a spell, saying that Alan's rank is not important. Edgar's stranger threatens to detain him while the attackers kill his family. Alan unleashes his power in a rage, declaring that he will not allow this to happen. He grows dark wings and asks if Edgar really thought he could be detained. Alan promises to make Edgar regret what he did. Meanwhile, in the mansion, the attackers mercilessly kill the guards. One of the knights shouts in rage, "How dare they attack?" It turns out to be the nimble sword Helmet, one of the defenders. The attackers accuse him of dishonoring the honor of the Night Ravens. In a rage, he calls the attackers pathetic parasites and shouts, "How dare they?" He rushes forward, surrounded by dark energy, and vows to tear them to pieces. Helmet merges with the black armor, transforming into a dark knight, the embodiment of rage. The knight swings his huge mace, claiming that even death will not erase such an act. He promises to shred every bone in his enemy's body. With a powerful blow, he throws aside several armored opponents at once. One of the attackers, in horror, recognizes him as the Dark Duke's mad dog. The Dark Knights try to restrain him, aiming at his legs to make him jump less. A powerful explosion occurs in the center of the fight, throwing everyone back. Meanwhile, a group of hooded men successfully penetrates the castle. The leader orders that the Duchess and the young lady be found and dealt with first. Their path is blocked by a young man who says that they cannot go any further. The attackers recognize him as the Duke's deputy, Eris's chief secretary. The group's leader chides Eris, asking if he has forgotten the true spirit of darkness. Eris contemptuously calls him a pathetic old man of the sixth circle, judging the power of the ruler. The old man replies that a wolf in sheep's clothing does not cease to be a wolf. Eris smiles evilly, saying that demonic wings will never become angelic. He unleashes his power using the Event Horizon's ultimate annihilation spell. The attackers realize in horror that they are facing a seventh circle dark mage. Dark energy thickens and falls upon the frightened hooded mages. Eris commands the darkness to consume them, and they scream in pain and horror. He straightens his tie and says with disgust that he finds this nickname disgusting. Elsewhere, a blue-haired girl casts the Blue Dissonance spell. Her opponent, a white-haired mage, unleashes his dark magic in a rage. The blue-haired elf smiles calmly and advises him to maintain his composure. He shouts that she is standing in the way of the Black Magic Tower's revival. The magician promises to torture her again and again until she begins to beg for mercy. At this time, a boy with brown hair runs down the corridor, calling for his mother and Lisa. He is stopped by a blonde boy with red eyes, Ray Eurus. The boy asks if Ray wants to stop him, but he is surprised by such a question. Ray says that the elders of the Black Tower have split up to infiltrate the castle. He explains that Sir Helmet is holding back the main forces, but others will try to break through. The boy thanks him and says that he must go to protect someone. Ray watches him go and confirms that they are friends after all. Suddenly, 3 hooded elders appear in front of him. Ray smiles ominously, showing sharp teeth, and says that there are many dishes on the menu today. In another room, a man with red hair is drinking wine, and a woman is interested in Ray. The man calls his companion Lady Scarlet, his lovely sister. He reassures his sister that Ray will do just fine, no matter what. Lady Scarlet agrees, and she and her brother raise their glasses of wine. The man on the throne says it tastes good, and the woman is glad he liked it. Looking at his reflection in the glass, the man tells Scarlet that Ray is more than just an adopted son. One of the magicians screams in horror, not understanding how a boy from the second circle can resist them. The boy hints that blood is thicker than water. Suddenly, the boy sinks his fangs into the magician's neck, who lets out a death rattle. The boy holds the lifeless body and calls the sixth circle mana a delicious dinner. Licking his bloody fingers, he decides to continue the hunt so as not to disappoint his father.